By the end of this week, we will have our 4 teams from the NAL that will be competing for the title in Munich. Welcome back, everybody, to the NAL, our final week here, and it's also our first day of playoffs. We're bringing back the best of series, starting with 2 best of 3s today. I'm Ginny, your host, joined with Foxy and Lax. Welcome back, guys.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back. Honestly, it was a nice break. Get the little week off. Unfortunately, I was sick, so I didn't really get to enjoy it too much. I was rotting in bed, but definitely glad to be here and see who we're sending to Munich.
Okay, negative Nancy. You could have just
I was
been
sick.
Oh, you could have just been like, ugh, I'm so happy to be back.
I'm still kind of sick. I sound
well, bless you. Hope you get better soon. Don't get us
Thank
sick.
you.
Just, all right. I was sick of the fact that we didn't have any Siege last week for the NAL, and now we're here, able to watch the playoffs, what everybody's been working down to see, who's going to be the representatives going to Munich and representing NA, and hopefully getting NA another trophy.
Yeah, I mean, hopes and dreams can, I was going to say, hopes and dreams can stay. But let's bring it back, see how exactly we got here, because when we're looking at the standings, I mean, DZ somehow still here. 12 points. I didn't think I was going to be saying that, but M80 is yet to be defeated still.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Envy. They played so well throughout the whole stage for a team, first year within the NAL. They just fall out, and they fall out with a loss, but also Dark Zero lost to standby on their final play day, so they just scraped by the hairs on their chin. As for the rest of the teams at the top, I mean, wow. M80, OXG, it's such a difference from how stage 1 went completely.
Yeah, if you were to tell me that this was how it was going to end from the previous stage, I would have never guessed M80 and Oxygen would have been at the top. So the fact that they're sitting there pretty comfortably and will throughout these playoffs, got to give them their credit.
What's also a little bit different this time is the Fantasy League and the way that actually played out, because if you guys remember last stage, y'all didn't really do too hot, but...
Doesn't last.
Yeah, you should be proud of that. But either way, let's see how this time Fantasy League went, because it's now wrapped considering we're in playoffs.
Fantasy Siege has come to an end. Our talent have sacrificed blood, sweat, and spreadsheets to pick the right players and claim the crown. But after 4 weeks, who's come out on top? Well, it sure wasn't Intero, who, with only 592 points, has finished in last place and will be receiving a punishment due to his poor judgment in picking players. In 3rd place came Foxy, who actually had the Stage 2 MVP on his roster, Adam. While Adam put up an astonishing 376 points this stage, Foxy only picked him up in the final transfer window, so most of those points were not actually capitalized on, and Fox only received 142 of them. In 2nd place is our Stage 1 champion, XR Troika. While Baby Shark and Dash helped Ollie get first in Stage 1, his MVPs this time around were the M80 duo of Gunner and Hot and Cold, whose undefeated group stage resulted in a total of 618 points for Ollie's team. But the crown doesn't go to 2nd or 3rd, and it sure doesn't go to last. Unless you got last in Stage 1, because Laxing has gone from 0 to hero and is officially the Stage 2 NAL Fantasy Champion. Laxing's G team of Giddy, Grixer, Gaveni, and Gomez put up consistent points all season long, with pop-off weeks sprinkled in between. But the best player on Laxing's team was actually Diffuser, who put up 317 points and was instrumental in M80 going 9-0. But that's it for Fantasy this year. Stay tuned for the NA Finals, where our champion and our biggest loser will be receiving their grand prize and grand punishment. For now, though, keep it locked right here on the NAL to see which teams will be representing North America at the Munich Major.
Yay! Congratulations, Lax. You won something in your career.
Hey, just another day in the office. What can I say?
Nah, miss me with that
great.
nonchalant shit.
That was great.
To be fair, I didn't even pick my roster, and I didn't even exchange anyone. So the fact that I stayed true to my team got us the first.
We both
Shout out to
improved. We were like last 2 Stage 1, and now you're 1st, and I'm 3rd. I was trying so hard, though. I was looking at the stats.
You were constantly swapping
I would
out
swap players.
I stuck true with the quad Gs and the 1D.
Yeah, you.
Okay. Anyways, let's move on to the next because we also have to look at the playoff bracket just to give you guys a bit of a reminder in terms of the 6 teams that are competing here, but also the games that we're looking forward to. With OXG and MAT being 1st and 2nd seed, they don't have to play today, but they're playing the winners of today's matches tomorrow.
And sometimes that can be a double-edged sword when you have that bye. You only have to win 1 game to make it to Munich. That being said, you don't get to practice the warm-up of playing today, so you can be cold going into their matchup, but at the same time, you also have the footage of what happens today to go off of it. But in the final 2 weeks ago when we predicted it, we both said, there's a good chance M80 and OXG could both lose their match.
Well, hold on. I didn't say that. I got cold feet and I didn't go with that one. But I mean, it could very well be the case, like you said, with that double-edged sword of just having to sit there and wait while these teams are going to be coming off of a hot win today to be going into that matchup. So I'm curious to see what does happen today, and not only that, what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, today we have 2 best of 3, starting off with Spacestation against Wildcard and finishing things with DZ Shopify. Personally, DZ Shopify I think is probably the most interesting one, considering both of these teams have been doing really well in Stage 1. They went to EWC, they come back here, and it's more of a crawling rather than a sprint towards the playoffs finish line.
I think that one's going to be kind of a snoozer, in my opinion, in terms of that matchup, where I think the Wildcard and SSG one, they got 2 very big wins last week that really put them in the spot here to be in playoff contention. So I think that one should be a barn burner, to say the least.
Yeah, you know what, you guys are actually pretty okay with predictions recently, so I'm proud of both of you for doing that. So let's
compliment.
That's all you're getting. Don't get used to it. But considering that playoffs is now here, I would like to kind of have your opinion when it comes to the teams that we are expecting to perform really well. So, Lax, I'm going to head over to you first off, and kind of like a tier list here in terms of what teams you think is going to do well and, yeah, well, not so much.
Well, I think it's a no-brainer for the S tier of picking M80 and Oxygen, just being at the top of the standings. If I had to choose just one of those two,
yeah,
I would definitely say M80 just for the simple fact that they have a flawless record. So M80 for that one. Let's move to A tier. You have to give Shopify Rebellion the same amount of respect that they had from Stage 1. Sure, they had a few hiccups this stage, but they still managed to place 3rd, and they're still looking good overall. Just small hiccups that I'm sure that they're going to rectify going into the playoffs. SSG, you have to put in the middle of the pack, because looking at their performance that we put so highly of them through Stage 1 into EWC coming into Stage 2, definitely a little bit in the middle, so I think B tier is pretty safe to say. Dark Zero and Wildcard, this was a tough one for me.
Take.
I would say Dark Zero, just when you look at the players that are on this team and comparing their last stage to this stage, sure, they had a good stage last stage and then a little lackluster performance this stage and barely squeaking in, but they find themselves in playoffs, and that's where we really see a team like this come alive of having 3 chances to get wins. And as for Wildcard, I think this one makes the most sense for me, because Wildcard, if you're looking at Stage 1 to Stage 2, they're the exact same team and really nothing tangible to hold on to. A lot of inconsistencies, a lot of things that we can look at from a negative perspective. So it's more so on them coming throughout into playoffs to see if they up that performance to even qualify one step further ahead compared to their last stage.
Honestly, if you told me that you were going to put DZ in C tier, like when we started Stage 2, I'd be like, damn,
Yeah,
I don't know if you're on something or onto something, but that's, I don't even want to say a hot take, to be fair, considering how they've done so far, but you also have your tier list, so I kind of want to compare notes here with Fox saying when it comes to who you're putting in C tier, S tier, whatever that might be.
I think my tier list has a little bit more of a hot take when it comes to the middle with A tier and B tier. Of course, S tier, M80, she has to go to them. You could make an argument for both of them. Again, I'd be side with you. M80, obviously undefeated. We'll have to see how the pressure affects them, because pressure is the biggest thing that's always affected M80. A tier and B tier, it's so difficult of a toss-up, but for me, I feel like the expectations that Shopify Rebellion has on their shoulders since the conception of this roster is always greater than everyone else in the league, because they have arguably a super team. They shouldn't be struggling at the levels that they're struggling with. So for me, seeing that, I really, it breaks my heart a little bit. So that's why I put them at B tier, because they should be playing better than everybody, because they have the roster to facilitate that. SSG, I think they're still doing pretty good. Stage 1 wasn't necessarily the best for them either up until playoffs. Stage 2 didn't look that great. I'd say putting them in A tier is exactly where they deserve to be. And then C tier, Dark Zero, Wildcard, I'd say they're one in the same boat. I don't think necessarily one's worse than the other right now. I would say, they're both having a little bit of an identity crisis. Dark Zero had a great Stage 1, but where has that gone? It hasn't really gone anywhere, Stage 2.
Yeah, that's yet to show up. Maybe today's the day, right? They're playing Shopify first. Their shot at redemption. We'll see whether or not they'll be able to do so. But first things first, the game that we're going to be looking at, SSG Wildcard. So I guess for both of you guys, putting SSG a little bit higher on your tier list, whereas Wildcard's towards the bottom. They also just barely scraped by making it here into playoffs. But this is their second chance, really, to try and go to an international this year.
Yeah, both these teams squeaked in based off their Super Week performance. I will say SSG does look better on paper in terms of their matchup compared to what Wildcard had to go through Super Week. So if you're mean, if you're an SSG fan, you got to feel comfortable with this matchup.
Yeah, let's start off a discussion with SSG, particularly because this roster last stage, they finished first. We're the first NALC to go to that international. Question is, can they repeat history?
Yeah, I mean, it did look that great in the final standings of them getting first in stage 1, but during the regular stage, in the play-ins, essentially the 9 matches that they had to play, they finished 4th. So they didn't look that great. Playoffs is where they locked in, and a big reason for that is the amount of versatility that they bring to every single game. They can play a whole plethora of maps, they can bring every single operator, and we've seen them incorporate different styles of play in their playoffs run. They made it to EWC, had a top 4 finish, then they come into stage 2, and yes, it hasn't looked as dominant as we would have liked to see, but that doesn't raise any concerns because it's the exact same thing that happened in the best of 1 phase during stage 1. So to me, I'd say they're in the exact same position. As long as they don't let it affect their mental, they'll be fine going into the playoffs of stage 2. These are their maps compared in stage 1's playoffs, and as you can see, they play a bunch of maps. There's not necessarily one map that's stronger than the other. I think it really comes down to the stylistic matchups against other teams that they play. They're going up against Wildcard today. We know that they're 0-2 on labs when it comes to going up against Wildcard because they lost it in the stage 1, and in stage 1 they lost it in stage 2. So it depends completely against the team that they're playing against. And so if they just make sure that they're paying a little bit more attention of who they're going up against, and in a best of 3, you have more opportunities. Stage 1, they also went 2-1 every single game in the lower bracket all the way to the final. So they're bound to lose one map, but it's the strengths of their good maps that are able to carry them through.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about their maps as both a strength and a weakness, and another weakness that we've seen come through this stage specifically when it comes to SSG is their support.
Yeah, that's the only tangible issue with SSG this stage that we've seen, because we're used to seeing them so consistently play well together, but now it really looks like they've been getting bailed out a lot of the times by their entries. The supporting staff, they've made a couple of changes. Fultz used to be the main and only hard breach when it came to this team. Now we see J9O picking up that slack. Benja was on more utility-based operators. Now he's more on the slaying operators of flexes, but he's not finding that success. So that's the biggest disparity right now, is their supports are too far away to be able to impact the entries. The entries have a lot of resources available to them, which is why they're able to find their success. But when it comes to playoffs, when it comes to a best of 3, you can't always rely on the big individual plays. So I'd love to see the supporting staff, specifically Fultz and J9O, find a lot more success, be a lot more flexible, be able to back up their entries a lot more, and hopefully we can see SSG repeat that final finishing of first in stage 1 here in stage 2.
Yeah, and what better team to do that against than Wildcard, considering that we already touched upon the fact that they've lost against them when it comes to the regular stage. This is their shot at redemption, but for Wildcard as well, it's not necessarily a roster that has wowed us this stage.
No, it hasn't. I just wanted to mention really quick, that was actually a really good bit on SSG. But as for Wildcard, I mean, yeah, they did really realistically squeak into playoffs. I mean, their last 3 games throughout that Super Week is what pushed them in here, and you have to look at the teams they beat. You know, they beat Cloud9, they beat Cruelty, so a lot to take away from that matchup in terms of how well they're looking. But something that has reigned true that we talked about in the beginning of this segment was more so of the fact is they've looked very consistent in terms of stage 1 and stage 2, and I'm not talking consistent on the level of looking good. It's kind of been mid-tier to say the least, which is why I rank them at D, because there's 2 things when we look at this roster. It's their performance side of things with the players' individual standings and their stats, and then you have to look at their map pool, where we've known realistically Wildcard hasn't had that strong of a map pool, but we have to talk about the player progression as a whole in the beginning of this. And we're looking at the 3-3 split here from each one of their games, 3 matches, beginning of the weeks. Obviously, very hard opponents. So everyone kind of doing their things, kind of finding success. Then you go into the next 3 games. Then we see some people taper off. Then we see some finding their stride. Then it's the last 3 games where we see everyone find their stride. And I say, you kind of have to take that with a little bit of grain of salt, because you're looking at that Cruelty win, you're looking at that Cloud9 win, you're looking at a loss versus Dark Zero. But the fact of the matter is everyone is starting to find their stride. And I've said it time and time again, if you're going to have hiccups during the stage, it's better to have it in the beginning than towards the end. So the fact of the matter, they are now all in unison, all in sync towards the end of that Super Week coming here into playoffs. We should start to see a little more systematical changes in terms of their lineups, in terms of their overall play. But the biggest one that I think is going to stick out the most, especially when we're looking at playoffs, is their maps.
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting point, because we've already touched upon it similarly for SSG, where it's like the map pool, a little bit of a question mark, a little bit of how's that going to play out. So I guess in this case, it can maybe be like a redeeming shot, because because Wildcard is also not necessarily the greatest with maps.
And don't get me wrong, if you don't want to show your hand on some maps throughout a stage, that's perfectly fine. You can be inferior, only playing 2 maps up until just recently they played 1. But it's more so, Wildcard is inferior. And when you look at the maps, when Wildcard only won 4 maps throughout Stage 1, and they only won 3 maps throughout Stage 2. So their map depth pool is not that great. And sure, you could have contributed to say, hey, they aren't showing a lot. They just want to be able to focus on a select few and show something off in playoffs. That can easily be said, but let's look at the stats in terms of their maps. And again, their map pool isn't that strong. And if you want to be a strong team, you want to make it into Munich, you want to be able to make a good run in Munich, you have to have a very diverse map pool because teams are going to pick you apart when they realize that your strengths aren't simply there in the map pool. And even in terms of their player performance, yes, they are performing, but again, that synchronization came from weaker teams being able to find their stride against, where everyone here in playoffs is punching above their weight.
Yeah, and especially when you're now entering the best of series territory, that's like a whole completely different beast because you need to probably at least be able to play 3 maps. There is a world where you're going to play all 3 of them. So bringing up the map veto, we're going to be starting off on Club, heading into Sky, and then finishing off on Chalet if we do get that far.
Really love seeing SSG ban out Labs off the start. But that being said, it leaves up the best maps for Wildcard. We just talked about it. They have limited good maps. Club, Chalet, Labs, and Skyscraper. Look at the maps we get. We got Labs out of the gate, but then we got Club, we got Skyscraper, and we have Chalet. The maps really favor Wildcard in this situation. SSG unfortunately had to ban out Labs. They have to ban out Lair, 2 maps that they struggle against teams like Wildcard. So in my opinion, I'd say Wildcard definitely won the ban phase when it comes to maps. They got 3 of their best 4 maps, and SSG's put in a position where they will have to just be the better team when it comes to it. The comfortability is going to be on Wildcard's side.
So in that regards, like coming into today, you and both of you actually predicted that SSG was most likely going to be winning this with the new map veto coming out. Are we feeling a little different, Lax?
I don't know. I'm kind of I'm still in favor of SSG. I actually really like the maps for SSG than Wildcard, to say the least, because when we're talking about those stylistic matchups that you just said with SSG, I think picking Clubhouse, one that's a very default map, you're going to feel comfortable on out the gate for both these teams. So there's nothing there. But I think it's the Skyscraper one. Sure, they haven't looked good on Skyscraper, but it's very easy then to fix everything once going into a team like Wildcard. I mean, sure, they lost to Cloud9 on it. Sure, they lost to M80. They got smoke showed to M80. I think they want to get it done here in 2-0 and not even have to go to a Chalet where Wildcard is going to feel, in my opinion, the most comfortable on being one of their better maps that they haven't been able to showcase too much outside of just one time throughout this stage. So for me, I actually think SSG is in the driver's seat for these 2 maps. And then, like I said, they want to get it done in a 2-0 fast.
That's interesting. I think Wildcard definitely won the map ban phase. I mean, they got their most comfortable maps. That being said, I do think SSG's the better team. I think they thrive on smaller maps, so it also works for SSG's favor. But out of all the maps that you could take Wildcard to, you're giving them their best 3. That being said, I think SSG's still going to be able to take it because they're just arguably the better team.
Damn, so you guys agree, but also slightly disagree. Either.
Yeah, I mean, if we could have seen SSG maybe trying to throw in a cafe, maybe a map that Wildcard's a little bit weaker in, that would have been great to see. But at the end of the day, SSG's better on the smaller maps anyway. It just happens to be that
comfort.
Yeah, it just happens to be that 3 of these maps are 3 of Wildcard's best maps. So, you know, it's going to be a difficult battle either way. That being said, I mean, SSG doesn't like taking it easy, so, you know, we'll have to see. I think SSG will still be the better team.
You touched upon saying that you think SSG is looking to finish this out 2-0. Is that realistic though? Because also I think, but it's also like important here to keep into consideration that we had like close to a week off where potentially Wildcard was finally, maybe, possibly, able to get every single one of their players on the same page.
Well, and that's kind of more so what I'm focusing on here is, again, when you look at the last 2, well, not the last 2 games, when you look at that Super Week, SSG played heavy-hitting teams and beat those heavy-hitting teams outside of M80, where then you look at Wildcard, like I said, they beat Cruelty. They beat Cloud9. Not very heavy-hitting teams, especially to say Cruelty, and then they lost to Dark Zero. So in terms of just feeling that overall comfort, that pressure that was applied, SSG went through that, and they were able to come out on top. So again, in terms of just having that overall comfort and just feeling like you're the better team, when you look at those stylistic matchups and those matchups in general, statistically speaking,
that's
SSG should be the better team.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to find out as we're ready to head into our first map of playoffs. Reminder for you guys, there are 6 teams competing, but only 4 can head over to Munich, and it starts here today with our casters, Lynx and Intero.
Thank you so very much. I'm very excited to get our playoffs underway, in which will be a long week of North America League action. Lynx, you and I are going to be bedfellows today, as scheduling earlier in this stage. At X, taking a couple of my shifts because I was at a wedding. I was doing the good friend duty, and now here we are. And we get yet again to share microphones together. Isn't that so nice?
Oh, that's messed up. You prioritized your friend's wedding over North American Rainbow Six Siege. Especially, what a stage we had. Some of the most 7-0s we've ever had. I mean, you're missing historic moments. To go be with your friends? That's
Unbelievable. Unbelievable that I am more than just a voice to esport action. But today we have a very interesting dynamic. Wildcard historically is a much better team against SSG than SSG is against Wildcard. In their earlier matchup in this stage, it was a 7-2 victory for Wildcard. And SSG, despite winning stage 1, looked like they've taken maybe a bit of a step back. They've been really quite top-heavy in terms of their kills. The desk was really happy with Wildcard in this map ban phase, for example. So there's a lot of things that are stacked against Spacestation. And yet, I don't think it's going to be a quick 2-0 like it was in stage 1. What are your expectations here for this matchup, and what can SSG do to ensure that they're not repeating history against Wildcard?
Well, I will say, I do think the general, situations are a bit different. SSG was, overall, I would say, a bit more inconsistent throughout all of stage 1. I mean, I don't think any of us really expected them to go on that run in the first place. Going into playoffs, things looked a little weird. Even though they did have a much better record than they did right now, they also took some early losses to Wildcard early on. It was kind of the inverse, where it was like a weird start, and then they, well, actually, no, I guess it was kind of like this stage, a weird start, and then they figured things out towards the end. But you have that massive 2-0 loss to Wildcard, in which we start off on a map like Nighthaven that neither team was really certain on. And then obviously, while SSG lose, they make a big run in the lower bracket here. Where SSG are figuring things out, and as the desk mentioned, Wildcard are on maps they're more comfortable with. They're not maps like Nighthaven, right? The first map is Clubhouse. This is a map that SSG will be well practiced on. This is a map that has been in the game for a long time. It is a close map, like the desk mentioned, and I think will serve to the benefit of a lot of the SSG fraggers. Now, once we get to Skyscraper up next, that might just come down to who starts on defense, but at least for this map right here, Parker, I don't think either team is going to get a particular edge, given the fact that it's Clubhouse.
You mentioned the whole top-down component in terms of Spacestation being quite top-heavy. I mean, Newers enters with a plus 16 KD. It's actually matched by Baby Shark, who's the highest-rated player on the side of Wildcard. Wildcard's quite spread out. In terms of frags, Spiker has the lowest amount of kills since September 1st at 66 kills. Baby Shark has the most at 77. So that's quite a spread. There's only 11 kills separating the last fragger from the top fragger. Same cannot be said for Spacestation. Unfortunately, while he plays a very important role, Fultz's kills have not been coming as readily as he'd hope. He sits at 39 kills on this stage compared to 71 for Newers. So if the fraggers of Spacestation don't show up early, it's all going to fall onto J90 and Fultz and that supporting cast. On a map like Clubhouse, there are lots of opportunities for your support players to get ample kills. It's just about how you deploy those players and how, frankly, Wildcard either attacks or then roams on defense, allowing those supports either attacking or defending on SSG to shine.
Well, I can tell you, Jan, I know probably not going to be doing a lot of shining in this round, especially, one, given the Monty role, not exactly where most of the action happens, or at least the action happening around the Monty. This particular game in front of us is CCTV cash defense. You'll be walking up the garage steps in all likelihood and applying pressure to anybody playing there, but Janano likely just going to be a vessel for information, pressure, and then the plant later on. These defenses, or these attacks, excuse me, tend to be pretty slow for the first half of the round. Open the plat wall, get the right panel soft, and now with that finished, and hopefully somebody able to break it open, likely Benjo with those Rotero drones. You can then, if you want to, put firebolts on top of the rafters, and then push up the staircase and actually fight the Azami playing there. But here it seems that SSG are at least considering opening other avenues, some focus towards Logi at the moment, even an ROU projector placed on CC window, by the way, just to make sure that nobody can actually peek if anybody's playing on Metal Balk or sitting on the roof.
Having listened to all the casters across all the regions, ROU projector being the gadget for sends is something you don't hear every day. I think Hap used to use it from time to time, but
I
most
call
casters just say,
half the time.
sorry?
I call them light screens half the time.
Light screens, sends walls. I mean, all of these things work. We'll say thermite charges instead of exothermic charges. They're all transferable, just interchangeable, some would even say. SSG's managed to take up quite a bit of space on the other side of this top floor, Lynx, but now the struggle begins. Get the electrification off of that single panel. Newers is going to try to give some coverage, but he gets blown up by a Nitro Cell. Kansan starting things off big. Goodbye, Newers. Goodbye, J90. A is also on the board with Benja dying, and in the blink of an eye, SSG has been reduced to just 2 players. Fultz and Ashen now side by side. They'll come to blows down in Lounge with Bay. They finish him off, but it's not looking great for Space Station at the moment. Wildcard doubling up on them in a 4v2 with just under a minute to go.
Yeah, it's unfortunately one of the possible consequences, and very foreseeable and likely consequences of a construction-sided push. That C4 is a very common position. It's tucked behind green box. You can toss it over the wall, and you can see that was the very thing Newers one of the things I imagine he was contemplating when he was throwing that nade over the wall was not just destroying the electrification, but also maybe trying to throw one in and force that player out. But unfortunately, if that's your only option, while you're sitting there with your nade in hand, ready to throw, the defender is going to have an opportunity to throw that C4 over the wall in turn, and if you don't get out in time, things can end very badly. Construction is a small space, and that C4 radius is a lot larger than you think. First round will go to Wildcard as SSG fall to, as I've just said, one of the many standard endings to a construction push if the attack doesn't get what they need.
I mean, they had a read on the Nitro Cell as well. I believe it was J90 who was watching while Newers was getting set up. Or no, it was Newers who was actually expecting it, and they just weren't able to grab it in time. The thing with Nitro Cells that we might be able to hear at home, but they might not be, is that if you're in the middle of calming or talking, you might not hear that telltale Velcro rip of the Nitro Cell. So it's very easy for it to go over while you're not particularly paying attention. It's not always a quiet environment on these teams, especially for a team like Space Station. It's very small, but Baby Shark just bottled a Kiba barrier, by the way, which means that just one of those barriers will be unavailable. Now, not to read into this too much, because it might not even have much of an impact on the round, but most of the time these teams are accounting for full usage of gadgets. If you're losing a Kiba barrier for nothing at the start of the round, that means A, as Azami generates those Kiba barriers, or those Kiba knives, or the kunais, or whatever you want to call the actual thing you throw, you will be a bit weaker in the immediate, or it will mean that you can't wait to deploy them at the tail end of the round when you know where the execute is coming from. Azami usage varies by team, but sometimes you'll see that they'll throw out a couple early on to establish like a beachhead off-site, or once they know where the execute is coming from, they'll put a couple up just to slow down the advance and make the attackers have to waste time.
Useful feature on any side, as you can see right now, Baby Shark. Common position for the Azami to play, or common kind of maneuver right there, no matter what the site is. You can hold inside a lounge, but the common cutoff position is main door, so just throw a Kiba on the interior lounge one that blocks the same angle, and you can rotate up and join the rest of the team. Currently a 3-man hold of the CCTV and cache side. Pretty standard setup for defenses defending gym and bedroom, no matter the operator lineup. You always have to be worried about overextensions on that side and how you could get defenders back. That's why you see sometimes some teams play a Clash in this position, or an Azami. In this case, Bay pushed extremely far out, all the way into garage, a minute 15 into the round. And while Janino gets that trade, if Wildcard is shooting like that, there might not really be much SSG can do to respond, though they do get 2 important kills, and Ben just found himself in Logi.
A best rated player on Space Station's found nothing so far. Ashen will fall shortly thereafter. Wildcard in the thick of it. Nice play by Benja. He could have a second no, but Kansan connects. It's all up to Jack outside of the building. He's picked up 1 kill for his trouble. Name a player who's having an easier match than Dash right now. Put down some gadgetry, just sit by. 0-0-0 across the board. Still an integral part, but hasn't really been much in the action.
Oh.
Wildcard's managed to scoot off. There we go. Wildcard had scooted out of the building and on the other side of the map. The Dash getting the final kill after I talked about how he'd had a very easy start to this map, but 2-0. And going to the player cams right now, I have to suspect SSG might have called their timeout.
And it's a very good time. Anytime you lose 2 rounds like that, you absolutely want to take a pause. And I will say, arguably, the first round might have been more like a broader strategic or communication failing than the second one. That being said, I'll get into why there's a little asterisk there. Because Bay hit some pretty nasty shots on Garage. And you're not always going to have a case like that where a player's able to land that kill, get a spray transfer, and then just barely get traded. But that's kind of the important phrase, barely get traded. In a situation like that, they should theoretically be able to get 1 kill, but either somebody is pushing in from Swamp, or pushing in from Lounge, or pushing in through the garage door to try and trade that position, or holding flat wall to keep him pinched, and then you pressure him with utility and without needing to expose 2 or potentially 3 people to a gunfight. So even though Bay getting both of those kills, given what SSG did, which is trying to clear that position by taking gunfights, even though him getting 2 kills is improbable, it still is a situation that SSG didn't necessarily need to be in, especially that early on in the round. Normally positions like that where Bayers playing are punished. It was not by SSG, and given the likely communication issues of nobody really watching the C4 in round 1, I imagine it's one of the big things Callout might be talking about in the timeout.
That's a good speculation. I mean, Callout has shown a lot of success as a coach over the years, and he knows this roster really well. Obviously, our idle speculation here on the broadcast is good enough to get people through the minds of some players, but we are not privy to the things that are being discussed. You've seen teams that are firing on all cylinders and doing well, and they actually have a lead, and the coach will still call a timeout. Where are we going?
5 seconds to go.
We are adrift. We are adrift. Okay, we are back. Sometimes you just want to take in the sights, I guess.
He's like, oh my god, a basement defense? Don't care.
Yeah. Here, look at all this architecture. Wow, it's beautiful in Germany this time of year.
Well,
No, I mean, we... It's a good 1-2 punch that we just had there.
next thing you know,
No,
Yaga's
to my
face camp's
point
gonna
about-
freeze.
This is, to my point about teams is that sometimes they will be in the lead and they'll still call timeouts because even though they're winning, the coach can hear that they are playing suboptimally or there's something going on that needs to be addressed before it escalates or spirals out of control. You have to have faith that the coaches actually know what they're doing in this regard. I don't think Callout's history and experience should be called into question. I think he's proven to us that he's quite reliable in his role, but as we always say, a coach can get your mind in the game, but if your fragger's going 0-6, doesn't really matter what coaching you're doing if they're just having a bad game.
Also important to keep in mind, last time SSG played this map, it was against Shopify. They won 7-3. They were 0-3 to start the game. They needed to kind of recover a little bit of that momentum, take a bit of a breather to actually get that dominant result against one of the best teams in the league. So SSG being down 2-0, in any case, does not mean they're out of the game, but certainly on this map with this team, they've been here before in very recent history. So I imagine this timeout will hopefully be effective given that precedent. But yet, as I say that, we have Baby Shark and Bay again playing extremely aggressively. Seems to be a theme for these wildcard defenses so far, and SSG opt to ignore the 2 players up top. What initially was a concern is actually an excellent call. They've read the site is super weak, and they flooded in off the back of it.
There's only 1 remaining on site right now. Kansan will hold down the fort. 3 kills, no deaths. He'll put that on the line and immediately lose it. His gamble does not pay off. Baby Shark and Bay trying to plug holes as their ship is taking on an awful lot of water. Doing some serious damage over towards blue onto the shield of Blitz, but just to the shield, not to the player himself. A double for Ashen as now Bay wraps around the bomb site. He's got control, but SSG is watching from the exterior. And after that timeout, they immediately translated into a successful round. Things could have continued to worsen for this SSG team if they hadn't found their footing in round number 3 on a pretty strong bomb site. They pull off an impressive attack, reading into it, as you said, very correctly, and there's really no hope for Wildcard there.
The exact kind of round you want, not only to, restore faith for the SSG fans, but also just to get the energy and the comms flowing for the team. Because, what have we been talking about? Seeming like there might be some communication issues, seem like SSG a little sleepy, a little lethargic coming in. So you have a defense where there's a bunch of players up top and very little below. A lot of teams, a lot of very good teams will still opt to clear that roam just because it's not an obvious target. And if you get all the kills on the roam, sure, you could have tried to chance it on the site, but now you have a 5v2 and it doesn't really matter anyway. You can take all the time to set up as you want. Whereas SSG, they were like, okay, let's actually try and take the weaker fights down below. And one, it's good opportunity recognition. Two, SSG clearly set it up very well. Everybody's moving in concert through blue, through dirt. So the communication is looking a lot better in the first 2 rounds. And also, getting the satisfaction of kind of like recognizing that there's a gap and winning it is a great way to make the team feel confident in their strategic analysis and also feel like the comms are actually doing something. And so just a great round to get SSG back into it, and also just a great round in general. We're on bar stage, by the way.
I was waiting for you to finish so I could jump in and say, I was going to say, what the heck is going on here right now? Wildcard is opting to go to a bomb site that is seen about as often as Sasquatch.
That means never.
Well, I mean, some people claim to see Sasquatch.
Claim.
Spiker dies, by the way, really, really early, 23 seconds into the round. And that's Ashen on the Fragmite. Making up for lost time, 3 kills to his name, tied with J9O. Down goes Benjamaster. And the story for SSG so far, as we talked about before a single round was played, the support players, or at least the flex on the side of Spacestation, are doing pretty okay, which can be concerning, or it can be the map. There's still a couple more rounds to go before we can make a declaration here, but I mean, the fraggers on the side of SSG, both Benja and Newers, just have not been as formidable as you'd hope. Newers in particular can dominate games. We are far from a dominant performance, so he still has time to make up for whatever kills he's left on the table through the first 3 rounds.
Next fight seeming to appear between Ashen and Kansan. Aware of the player pushing down the stairs. Huge victory, though. Gives Ashen a line directly cutting the 2 bomb sites in half. Dash also sitting inside a garage. Spotted on the flank watch. Cover really good for SSG at the moment. Not only softens up the mute, but also gives information that there were only 2 players on the site, though Dash can, as you can see, very likely rotate back. But SSG have done a lot of damage, both in the kills and damage to the remaining players, with plenty of time to spare. And so as long as they can keep a lid on anybody retaking, SSG should be in the clear for a pretty easy conversion, especially with both Grim and Ying having full utility remaining.
And don't love Wildcard's chances, even if this bomb site is a little bit goofy. Attackers can trip up just not really knowing how to execute it. Top floor control is going to be oh so important, and that's Bay holding down the fort for the time being. Misses an opportunity on Ash and collects it at the last second. There's a Ying as well in tow as Fultz is dropped now. Looking for an opening onto another wildcard player. There goes Baby Shark. Candelas will go out over by the bar. He'll conceal himself. It leaves Bay upstairs. They once again have completely avoided these offsite players. They had a bad run-in earlier. Diffuser will go down, and now Bay will scramble. All it took was getting Ashen up top. And then immediately SSG pivoted. And a good pivot it looks to be as Bay is in a really bad spot on stairs, taking a ton of damage in the process. There's a DMR and a shotgun that will be aimed at him point blank range. And Newers will get the final kill as Space Station stitches 2 together. An unconventional bomb site for Wildcard. It does not work out. Space Station again read into the defense quite correctly. To their credit, they find an open bomb site. They ignore the echo upstairs, pull off the diffuser, and then box out the remaining defenders from retaking.
And it might be a different site, but as you just mentioned, that's the exact same way that they won their first attack. Hey, there are X amount of defenders. In that round, it was 5. In this case, it was 3. One's up top, and more importantly, the gym hatch is closed because since Wildcard are defending gym bedroom, you don't want to have that hatch immediately open because it gives you a good angle into the position held by the defense. So if Bay wants to rotate back, he's got to either do it through the construction hatch, which SSG control, or walk back down main, which is going to take like 10 seconds to get back to the site. So, as Parker said, they realize that situation, they immediately drop, throw all the utility, and get the kills. SSG using that strategy of just counting defenders really, really well in the past couple rounds. It's been the defining feature for these 2 victorious attacks. Going back to CCTV, I have to imagine Wildcard probably won't be pushing that far around the map. And if we see somebody roaming, I was about to say, it'll likely be inside a lounge behind these castle barricades where it's effectively just part of the site.
Like the tricks being brought by Space Station, foregoing a shield for another round. Shields have not been as big of a staple in some of these NAL lineups as we've come to expect, especially when compared to other regions. This is a pugilistic lineup. Lots of fighting potential, good guns, some gadgetry to deal with. But I mean, your anti-gadget gadgetry on the side of Space Station is mostly reserved for those Rotero drones at this point. Everything else will be about finding players, getting them out of position, exothermic charge to open up lines of sight, the bees from Grim to pin down or keep players out of certain areas or get information should they be in that area. Logic bombs to find their position, then of course Glaz ideally to quarterback whatever push you may have. Fultz playing the Glaz with Diffuser is not odd, but it's very uncommon that a sniper takes the Diffuse kit because usually you want a Kali or a Glaz to oversee that. There's still plenty of time for him to get a pick and then drop it, surrender it, have somebody else rush in. Or maybe they just want him to get a pick and then go in amidst the smoke himself.
It's possible, but you do also raise a good point. You know, one of the things SSG have, I was about to say, one thing they've done is give somebody control the diffuser who's in a position to run in off the back of a call. And while Fultz was not in that position earlier, he certainly is now. Trying to chance it through the smoke, it actually works out great. He loses a lot of HP, but catches Kansan completely off guard. Newers hops in off the back of his own grenade, but with SSG in the disadvantage, they now have to fall off and try to play for some of these kills. Fultz, because of that gamble on low HP, easy to pick up for Baby Shark. And the trade's looking nice for SSG, catching Dash on the rotate back. But it's extremely haphazard in SSG, putting things together as they move along, which I suppose is how they won 2 previous rounds, so Wildcard maybe shouldn't feel comfortable in this 2v2.
Soft walls in front of Benjamaster, but he's got some protection. The Spiker's very, very close. Bay will have the onerous task of getting up the stairs, and it gets even worse as he's lost Spiker as his one confidant. Bay's been spotted by those bees, so they know his whereabouts, and the 2 remaining players from Space Station can just sit far back. Newers, by the way, was 1 and 2. He has 4 kills.
Oh.
That streak will now end as Bay goes for the run out, and he has time, but he's going to have to be quick. Benjamaster will likely play keep away as he's far enough back from the diffuse kit. Playing the angle, now retreating over towards construction, and it's a run out. As a vault in, Bay seems to think he's in bathroom, but he reads that one wrong. Benjamaster's patience inside of construction will pay off, and it's 3 in a row for SSG. I was going to point fingers a little bit at why Fultz did not stick the plant when he had 2 players covering him. I don't know if he was afraid of a nitro cell, but he took matters into his own hands, and it was a bit of a suspect decision on my point of view. It all worked out in the end, but I was a little confused as to why Fultz did not fully commit when he had the numbers in sight.
I can actually answer that. Because yes, having the numbers in sight, Fultz not taking the plant, it seems strange. Why not do that? Even in the 3v4, if you have the angles, what's the issue? Well, SSG wanted to take down Spiker, but the way they did it was just having somebody play main door and cutting off that angle, right? But that player dies in the process, so you don't have anybody actively pressuring Spiker anymore. So that means when one of your players in sight falls, Fultz now has to worry about somebody walking up from garage that can't be punished until he's already on the player planting. So Fultz then has to go and take the fight inside just to chance it. It's a case of one of SSG's plans not working, and then the rest of the team having to adapt it and incorporate it into the broader strategy. Also, one small thing I want to highlight, I don't know if it was just chance, but really good game IQ by Benjamaster. If you put a hard breach charge on that wall and Bay's in CCTV, Bay hears it, then hops out thinking he can catch him as he's falling back, but Benja then hides inside of the little sheet outside of the construction doorway to protect himself. Little interesting tidbit.
Much has been said about Benjamaster's changes on this team since the addition of Newers. He has pushed Benja into less traditional fragging roles, and his numbers have suffered for it. He has a negative 12 KD, which is not the worst on the team, but is getting there. Fultz, unfortunately, the person right now that's struggling the most, but Ashen will avenge him immediately as Fultz got picked off above. Down goes the Lion, and Ashen is finding everything. Sidearm out. 2 very swift kills. 3rd over inside a bathroom, and he gets slayed by Spiker as, well, he was being watched quite intently by that bulletproof camera. J9O also on the board. SSG's guns have come alive. They were very quiet through those first 2 rounds. It just took some time for them to get loaded, potentially. Maybe they spawned in with blanks. Now it's Spiker and Bay swinging for the fences, trapped inside of the bomb site. SSG knocking on the door, and it's a valiant effort, but one that ultimately falls flat on its face. Newers and Benja collect the final 2 kills. SSG is riding quite a streak. 4 consecutive rounds. No round losses since the timeout. And they'll take the first half on Clubhouse 4-2.
And the strategy for SSG after that timeout becomes really clear because what started in round 3 was the consistent theme across that whole round. The moment we get any bit of momentum, just immediately increase the pace and keep Wildcard having to, well, of course, you know, like in a game of Siege, analyze the problem in front of them, but introduce so many new variables that they are overwhelmed in the process and have faith in our own gun skill, SSG's gun skill, in order to execute that plan. They did it in round 3 when they were counting players on the roam. They did it in round 4 when they did the same thing with Bay up top. In rounds 5, things got a little tricky with the player in Garage surviving, but it was the same thing. Rush into the site, catch them off guard. And on round 6, what better example? What better way to catch them off guard when Baby Shark thinks he's safe, then when he dies walking in front of the window, nobody's going to expect somebody to hop into the window afterwards and hold an angle watching Logi. You think you're safe in that position because it's still so early on. Then again, you're also playing against SSG, and you're specifically playing against Ashen. That's one of those things that I'm not blaming Wildcard for not expecting it, but of all the teams in NA to make that kind of play, and all the players in NA to make that kind of play, I'm not shocked it was those two.
There's a term that was used by Canadian to describe Yaga and somebody, and I think it was Hyper many, many years ago, called the Brick Brain Duo. And they called them that once, and it was quite widely popularized across the community for a variety of duos, not just them, for basically being a bunch of, I guess, like rockheads.
Attacker's objective is to
I think brick should be the operative word.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I was trying not to use brick, but it's early in the day for what is going to be a long weekend. Cut me some slack. I'm casting 5 days in a row.
Nah. Also, to be clear, not calling Ashen a brick. I'm just...
No. So the term is used to describe players who do things that defy conventional strategy and conventional wisdom, and they pull it off, and you die to it, and you go, oh my God, why are you there, you brick? And that's basically it. It's kind of a dumb play, but sometimes dumb is great. Sometimes dumb works. Sometimes you don't want to overthink it. SSG definitely has 2 players that can shut their brains off and just fly into the bomb site and frag really effectively. And it's not said as a pejorative. It's said complimentary, actually. Like, it's good that they can do this. Ashen and Newers have combined for 12 kills, so I don't really think they care about the overall strategic element. They've got a dozen kills between the 2 of them. I think they're taking everything they can get, and I think they're going to be proud of the plays that they've made over the latter portion of that first half.
You can see they're trying to halt any possibility of Wildcard replicating the same thing. Wildcard ran 2 to 3 people on the realm in their basement defense. We've got all 5 on site for SSG, and not just all 5. We've got a tuber out to freeze the hatches and deny anybody from opening it up quickly, especially with a Cade ban by Wildcard. We've got a Clash sitting inside of blue. That's the exact spot SSG rushed in through in their first victorious attack of the previous half. Ashen's making sure they can't let that happen. They've got the Vulcan packs as well to burn out time at the entrances. They're forcing Wildcard to use firebolts on main stairs. That's execute utility that Wildcard is using to clear the roam. That's a crazy angle Benjamaster has. That's also put the Capitao to 1 HP. So SSG are doing a complete reversal, not only of what Wildcard did, but also an exact counter to the strategy they employed on their own attacks.
It's a long range being held upstairs by the Bucket Baby Shark. He might be able to see through 2 floors in that angle. Monty of Dash took some damage from a very similar vantage point that Spiker was on. As the slow advance of Wildcard will get even slower. Zoto canister keeping them at bay. J90 will crush Spiker, and it's even numbers with 40 seconds left. Battening down the hatches on this bomb site. SSG coalescing around these bomb chassis, sitting, waiting, explosives in hand, or what explosives remain, with a Clash there for added measure. Ashen and Newers will work together. Now the advance coming over towards blue, and there's a Nitro cell, but the attention of Newers goes elsewhere. Bay will kill him because of it, and that's a big loss. The shield will go up, Ashen survives, and now inside of blue, it's a tough go for Wildcard, but they've got the upper hand. They're running out of time. They'll need to pick up the defuse kit. Nobody has it. Ashen wasting time, but Wildcard will sink their teeth into that defense, and the attackers are having a great clubhouse. Wildcard wins their first attack on the second half and breaks the 4-round streak that SSG was on.
Can't overstate how important that kill was Bay got onto the player playing behind Generator, because everyone in blue is well aware of the angles that the attack is going to be pushing from. Likely not the staircase, because you're pushing up that long hallway. It'll probably be up from oil pit, because the attack is just safer from that position. But Newers, just playing a little further back in a very, I would say, kind of like reasonable slip up, ends up exposing themselves, and Bay catching a really good timing. As a result, Ashen no longer has any support in blue. He has to back up. And where does he have to back up? Into the line of sight of players on Kitchen Hatch. Into the line of sight of anybody pushing dirt or dropped into the site. And so Ashen can't really hold off this onslaught anymore, and he doesn't have time to reposition to hold off another angle. So Ashen becomes a non-factor, and the rest of Wildcard, who now have a man advantage, just have to win their fights, which they all do.
5 seconds to go.
What a great matchup, especially in comparison to what we have seen between these teams in the past. There'd be Wildcard's utter domination of them in the playoffs, 2-0ing them back in stage 1, or the 7-2 victory for Wildcard as Spacestation was having a bit of a failure to launch at the start of this stage. Still, this is SSG's map. We expect them to do well. Didn't really love their chances through those first 2 rounds, but they've been able to figure it out since. Now, if the attackers do have an advantage, SSG has their hands full for the remainder of regulation. All SSG needs to do is win 2 rounds as defenders, push us to OT, and then go from there, but too soon to tell how Wildcard will grapple with all the attacks that they're going to be given.
There we go. You can see both teams, Wildcard and SSG, opting to ban the 2 ranged hard breachers on their attacking side, and both teams have the same response. All right, we'll just bring Maverick. Especially since Maverick's not really you can bandit trick all that much. It's a ban selection that I'm still perfectly fine with, especially for this site, because the main issue here is, sure, flat wall gets opened easy, but the main way you open up that garage wall is with maybe some X-Kairos or with a Selma charge. And if you don't do it, you have to bring some hard reach charges on the attack, and there's a lot of utility you might want to bring in its place. You can see everybody being prepped, though. Flashbangs going in, likely to burn the ADSs, make way for the firebolts. Kansan will place both in, and Janano, man, what a bad position. And what a well-executed clear of the garage by Wildcard. They do that in 10 seconds flat. Yep. Janano is doing everything right, but Wildcard just knew exactly what to do.
Very methodical take, very well coordinated. They expend a little bit of utility, but not too much. They've still got some in pocket for an execute in the next minute. Still got skeleton keys, still got your lances, still got 2 smoke arrows as well. And Kansan, most importantly, did not die. It's not uncommon to see a Capitao lose their life with a garage take. You basically pay to gain whatever foothold on that rafter and then continue onward without the Capitao. So excellent for Wildcard now as they stare down what will be an execute. Still have to worry about the Toxic Babes in pocket for Ashen and the Clash as well, but Wildcard's chances just got a big leg up.
You could see them waiting for the final cause. Kansan's worked his way out, but there is also Newers flanking up the oil pit, by the way. Keep that in mind. As the attack is pushing in, is there anybody watching that Jaeger for the flank? No, he hops up, downs Kansan in the process, and that opens up a very key line. Yet in the process, Wildcard get the plan down and can start focusing on that too. Huge fight inside of the site, won by Ashen, and Newers confirms his kill onto Kansan. SSG have retaken the lead off the back of that flank and the site players withstanding. But still, half of the post plant's gone, and Spiker has worked his way all the way to a long angle, but I don't know if he can see it. Oh, he downs him through the wall! Able to find the right kills, and Baby Shark up close loses a lot of HP to that C4, but I think Spiker might just have enough on this position as Newers aims to find Benja's head. Spiker running out of ammo, down in the process! The angle turns against him! Far too much distance to nail those shots through that tiny hole in the wall. And while it was good for one, Benja able to work it out on the second.
Well, the attackers do have a distinct advantage on this map here in the NA League. Gone are the days of Clubhouse being this defender fortress of the 40 rounds that it's been played in the group stage, and I suspect that number will shoot up mightily during the playoffs. 58% of those rounds were won by the attackers. Now, that is obviously in complete opposite of what we expect from Clubhouse, and also defies the trend that we see in the other major regions. I don't know what it is with North America liking this map as attackers, but it is quite peculiar. That obviously doesn't bode well for Spacestation. But that particular round, that's a tilter. Strategically, Wildcard did just about everything right, and frankly, they probably should have won that round. And yet, whether it just be poor aim, whether it be nerves, whether it be whatever, Wildcard is still a young, inexperienced team. There will be mistakes that are committed just based on that lack of experience. The round goes in favor of Spacestation. It prompts Wildcard to call their timeout right away because they know that they are running out of time. While they do have the fortunate and favored side, it's only one more round for Spacestation to guarantee overtime. Two more and this series goes to a 1-0 lead for Spacestation, and map 2 on Skyscraper will come up, which frankly should do well for Wildcard, as SSG are not the best Skyscraper team. But still, I mean, Wildcard putting on a good showing. I gotta tip my hat to Spacestation here. Yes, it's their map, and yes, they did start on the statistical better side, though it is odd that Wildcard would push SSG to attack on SSG's own map. But either way, SSG have shown up, and the growth that they've had over Stage 2 so far has been terrific. They are getting better the longer this stage goes on, and for fans that saw them do the exact same thing in Stage 1, en route to a first overall and a Stage 1 championship, things look pretty good here through map 1 for Spacestation, as they're hoping to not just win Stage 1, but Stage 2 as well.
Also, one small thing I just kind of realized from the last round that I want to talk about very briefly. I am curious why, given the way they were trying to play that push point, they didn't have the Cali in Ruins instead of Spiker, not holding that long angle since you have those small holes made in the wall. I'm kind of curious why they didn't do that. But anyway, that is last round. And now, we have Gym Bedroom. Dash back on the Monty. In all likelihood, going to, I was about to say, do the exact same thing you normally see on CCTV, walk up the rafters, take control of that position, and then start applying the pressure to CCTV and Cash respectively. SSG again running the defensive shield. The Clash likely playing to not only facilitate anybody rotating back through construction, she can block the window, but also being able to walk over, and I was about to say, if she wants to move into CCTV, can shock anybody playing this position, or more importantly, just get information on how many Wildcard attackers are in fact pushing this side of the map, which in this case is 4 at the moment.
Folks watching the Flames spread in front of him as Kansan has used all of his utility to much less success than in the previous round. We witnessed that excellent collapse and flushing out of the defenders on rafters. Rafter control is very firmly on the side of Wildcard, but it wasn't as eagerly contested as the previous round. SSG now falling back as they've gone through half of the round. They've managed to waste a bunch of utility, waste a bunch of time, shoot out a couple drones. Their positions are known, but now it's incumbent upon Wildcard to close that gap. Go through construction, go through cash, get to the bomb site. You've suffered a little bit. Fultz has taken a tiny bit of damage. Spiker's taken a little bit more, but beyond that, it's a relative stalemate beyond what utility's been used.
No, this is a relative stalemate. That's exactly what SSG wanted out of the beginning. They wanted to waste as much time as possible and then slowly pull the attack in as they fall back. And what have Wildcard got for it? CCTV and Cash, but it's taken 2 minutes. It's taken all your fire bolts, 1 smoke bolt, 2 bees, flashbangs. Sure, Baby Shark still has all his Deathmark trackers, but when you get late in the round, a lot of the times you don't want to use those Deathmark trackers. Deimos wants to creep up and be unexpected. Deathmark tracking would reveal his position. So as Wildcard start moving into Logi, if Baby Shark isn't able to disrupt everything on main stairs, I think SSG should be able to close this out really easily.
And try to take out the Clash now as Fultz will lose some of his shield. They will come to blows. The anime skin on that Monty being a magnet for these bullets, and Fultz wins the engagement. Elsewhere, teams will trade, but the numbers still favoring Spacestation. They will continue to get better, and Wildcard just has Kansan left. He's got the second most kills on the team and will now tie Bay, but that'll be all she wrote on that round, and Spacestation moves to map point. They're 3 minutes away for putting their own map in the win column and setting their sights on Skyscraper, hoping for a quick 2-0.
SSG just achieving every single win condition they set out for that defense. Waste a bunch of time in CCTV and Cash. Done it. Don't lose a body in the process. That's just extra credit. They accomplished that too. Set up your fallback positions in Logi while Wildcard fill in. Waste even more time, and ideally, SSG win the round on like a 5v5. You're trying not to give up even a little bit of damage to your teammates, let alone kills in the process. And the time, then the management of it was perfect for SSG. We don't start having kills until about 20 seconds remaining. And also they're very aware of the main stairs flank, not just because Baby Shark likes to do that, but every team in that position is going to send somebody up main stairs. SSG knew the exact win conditions, also knew the exact way Wildcard would try to make up for those earlier losses and countered those as well. The exact kind of round where this late in the game, it's very clear that SSG, not saying they won't lose another round, but it's very clear that SSG are playing a really, really strong game. And those 2 rounds we had at the start, that was just them getting the jitters out.
It takes time for some teams to get up to speed. You know, it can take a map, it can take a couple rounds, it really just depends. I know there's a joke about what time esports players get up at, but we are a couple hours earlier than usual. If these players are West Coast based, instead of them having a game at say 3 o'clock their time or 2 o'clock their time, they might be playing at 10, 11 a.m. or at least getting up shortly before that. It's hard. It can be hard to adjust, especially if you're on demon hours. I do know that NA does not have the, how do we put this nicely? Greatest track record of having scrims start on time. You'll go on NA Twitter and it'll be awash in teams complaining about scrim partners just not showing up.
Well, you know what we can say, Parker?
No.
SSG have shown up.
They have. Doesn't matter what time of day.
Doesn't matter what time of day. Old SSG, pre-call out, I should say old Astralis, pre-call out, maybe not. Forrest was on Demon Hour sometimes in 2021, back in the T2 days. Nowadays, I know Forrest isn't on the roster, but on OXG, he's not staying up too late. Nobody on SSG stand up too late. More importantly, they're showing up in today's game for the final defense. SSG get to run back basement. I say get. This is the one defense they have lost so far. But it still was one in which they stalled a lot of time against Wildcard. And here you can see they're extending out a lot more than before. Instead of holding it down on the site, they're going to try to complicate things. They got a mute jammer roam up top. Ashen holding inside of construction. The moment those EMPs go out, he sends a C4, backs up in the process. Clash also being up here is kind of... Hold on, I knew we were roaming. I didn't know we had 4 people up here on this operation. That's kind of crazy. But also, Parker, when SSG saw this kind of setup, they immediately hit the site. Wildcard are buying into it, and it's to their detriment.
When you figured that out, I heard the dial-up sound go in the background as you were figuring out exactly what would happen. Spacestation and Wildcard will come to blows with just a little bit over a minute left in the round. Do or die for Wildcard. They die. That's it for map number 1. And Newer's here to the rescue. Baby Shark and Spiker are toppled. Kansan and Bay now filtering in. The clash of folks tucked in the corner. Bay slowed down as they will engage, and oh my goodness. He smacks the booty, and with that it's a 2v2. Engaging over towards blue is Benjamaster. He narrows it down to just Bay, who's looking to break double digits, and he'll need to do so if his team wants to stay in the thick of it. Spacestation had a strong stage 1. It took them some time. Well, guess what? They had a strong map 1. It just took them some time as well. They very quickly put their own map in the win column and set their sights on Wildcard's pick.
And what else could you want for SSG in that matchup? Slow start, but they take a timeout, immediately bounce back, and look so exceptional on attack and defense on Clubhouse. And in the end, achieve the exact same result they did against Wildcard as they did against Shopify, where they also had a slow start and won every single round in a row after they went down 0-3. SSG looking like it's not going to be like last stage, Parker, and that they might actually beat Wildcard in the first round, but we still have one more map to go and the desk to talk about map 1 right after this.
SSG is starting playoffs off really strong with a dominant win on that first map pick. And Wildcard, I mean, to be fair, they got the first 2 rounds and then it just kind of went...
Yeah. Well, I think it goes into what I was talking about, where I said I think SSG is going to feel comfortable on these maps. Obviously, it's still to go without Clubhouse. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Wildcard did get the first 2 wins, but then you immediately saw the transition into those next 4 rounds where SSG, from those previous 2 rounds, understood their matchup, understood what Wildcard were doing, and started countering pretty heavy, whether they were finding the flanks, cutting it off, whether they were hitting sight really quickly, just understanding what Wildcard was trying to do throughout the rounds. And then even in round 7, I mean, Link said it as well, why not have the Cali all the way out in the side to watch that rotate hole into CCTV to go for that kill? And then also banning Mira, that just doesn't make sense to me on Clubhouse. Clubhouse isn't a map where I'm like, oh, you know, Mira was there, that really would have helped. If anything, Mira causes more problems because you can get a lot of the mirrors from sight, where Basement is probably like the only one where I see it used, and not banning out the Clash where they use it every single defensive round. I think realistically, Wildcard did not understand what SSG was trying to do throughout their defenses, let alone on their attacks.
Yeah, it didn't look like Wildcard was playing in the map right now. It felt like they went into it with a lot of preparation, a lot of pre-game strats, like you said, round 7, them planting, using the Mav holes, trying to play from further back. Every single round, you know, up until their first starter defenses were pretty decent when they got the first 2 rounds, but obviously every single round past that point, it looked like they came in with prep planning. They weren't adapting what SSG would do. All of the SSG's attacks where they constantly would take blue or have pressure around blue. Wildcard was not responding to it correctly, and that was the lack of adaptation that we've been seeing through Wildcard throughout this whole stage, something that we haven't seen since Reload. And so it's something that Wildcard find themselves in this position where they're in a comfortable map, but it looks like they're just playing and putting on what they've done in practice, what they've done in paper. They're not playing to the game day. And obviously SSG is a very hyper-adaptive team. They're going to make things work on a snap of a finger, try to adapt, try to figure things out. Even in that round 7, I mean, climbing up through the oil pit, going for a garage rafters flank to then focus on that defuse. I mean, that's something that only works if all of Wildcard is focused on the strategy of playing super far away, trying to play against that diffuser. And it just didn't work out in Wildcard's favor.
Yeah, and that's like the scary part as well when we're talking about Wildcard and their lack of being able to adapt to these situations, because this is not a best of 1. It's not like, okay, you're done, you're dusted, you can go on to your next game. It's a BO3 lax, and they need to adapt to be able to get at least next map under their belt if they want to push it to the decider. Otherwise, they're dropping to that lower bracket on day 1.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of being in a best 3 is you can wipe this first game off, you can understand where things went wrong, and you can immediately correct it going into the next map. But what worries me about going into the next map is we're on Skyscraper, which is a very defender-sided map. SSG starting on it. Sure, SSG hasn't looked the prettiest on it, but if I'm any team going to a map like Skyscraper, I'm going to be extremely comfortable, not only knowing I just dominated you on your pick, well, on our pick, but now I'm going to your map that you're choosing, and I'm going to be on the strongest side out of any single map that we have. I mean, like I said, I think all of these maps are favoring SSG.
Even before we got into the map, into the club, I thought to myself, Wildcard has to win Skyscraper and go to a Chalet. That's their only chance of winning. I didn't think that they would win Clubhouse regardless. But the only saving grace for them is the last time SSG played it was against M80. They lost all of their own defenses. I mean, SSG got 7-0'd, and they didn't win a single defense against M80. But that is M80. That's a very hyper-aggressive attacking team. Wildcard is not that. They're struggling to find entries. Their aggressive players are not showing up.
And that's the thing. What do you take away from a team that lost 7-0? Well, like, what are you really dissecting in that game that I guess M80 was doing really well that you're going to try to do the same? Because if you're trying to follow that same ideology and that same fundamental of the attacks from M80, I think you're setting yourself up for failure right out the gates, because SSG is going to correct all of that to make sure that doesn't happen again. So you're going to be going into it thinking, okay, this is what they're going to do, and then you're going to see 1 or 2 players doing something completely different. It's going to interrupt your comms. Then you're going to have to double back, try to figure out your next approach. And what we saw in Clubhouse, where they weren't even finding the next approach like SSG was doing, it's going to be 10 times harder on a map like Skyscraper that, again, is very defender-sided.
Being devil's advocate, I can also say, like, we started the games a little bit earlier today. Maybe this first one was like the warm-up map. They're not going to come into their own map pick. They're going to hit the ground running. It's going to be great. But realistically, considering what we've seen from them on Sky, are we thinking they are going to be able to push it to Chalet?
I just don't believe Wildcard is playing up to par to SSG right now. I think SSG should be able to win Skyscraper, specifically since they're starting defense 2. Honestly, I'm expecting at least a 5-1 half for SSG, and I think it'll be closed out. I just don't know if Wildcard has the aggression like a team like M80 had to be able to top SSG.
I think if I want to give, I think Wildcard can make a comeback here. I think they can push Ashley. Every comeback starts with one single win, right? So fact of the matter is if they can just get 1, get 2, get 3, not focus on the board, just focus on their team play, focus on their fundamentals, they can bring this back and put it into a map 3.
The journey of 1,000 miles.
Miles.
Yeah, with one step. That's the one. Either way, we're ready to head into our second step of this best of 3 with Skyscraper coming up right now with Lynx and Intero.
Well, I mean, obviously, when you get into the playoffs, you expect the matches to be good, but I don't think anybody saw the beginning of Clubhouse as good as it was. You and I were talking during the break about, frankly, how fun and how strong that level of Siege play was. Now, does it translate over to Skyscraper? These are very different maps. Lynx, do you think Wildcard has it in them to level things out, or do you agree? This might be the end of the road and Spacestation can close it out 2-0.
I have to think this will be the end of the road, and it's because of something Gabe highlighted, which is, if you look back to that M80 game, you're probably thinking SSG lost 7-0 on Skyscraper, and they didn't just lose 7-0 on Skyscraper. The first 6 rounds they lost were on defense, the side that everyone always talks about how overpowered it is on Skyscraper. It's the side they're starting on here. Surely Wildcard not only could have an in here, but surely they could look to that M80 game. This is the point Gabe made. Surely they could look to that M80 game and figure something out. But as Gabe very well put it, SSG probably saw that and were like, hey, we got 7-0'd. We need to go back in the VODs and really dissect what happened there. And they were getting manhandled by M80's positioning. M80 were constantly putting SSG players in 2 3-way crossfires, pushing them back with cutoffs in the right position. It was a very good fundamental game of Siege. And there's 2 things to consider there. 1, SSG can figure out ways to avoid that by, for example, maybe just tightening up a little bit, making sure that they aren't putting players on solo roams or playing on islands. But also, more importantly, I just don't know if Wildcard are that coordinated a team as M80 were. I think it's difficult for any team to get 6 attacks on a row, but I just don't know if Wildcard have that same level of fundamental polish. Now, we want to talk about the ban phase real quick. We have a very standard setup I think you could expect on Skyscraper. 2 hard breach bans, 2 hard breach denial bans. I don't think anybody involved is going to be knocked off kilter by these bans. So we're just back at the fundamentals. Who is going to play a better game of Siege on the attack? And ultimately, I just don't think Wildcard have the polish M80 did to 7-0 SSG.
That's quite the nitro cell by Newers. Finds nothing. Could have been an explosive beginning for Spacestation here on a map that they lack the same familiarity that Wildcard has. Nothing really outside the norm for this Wildcard lineup. Some of the most played operators in hand. Ying, Dokkaebi, and Lion all together is a nightmare for defenders who are ill-prepared. There's a Warden on the board, though, by the way. So they're prepped for it, and Wildcard would have known this. The Warden gets locked in before any of the attackers do, so the Warden is not a response. Quite the engagement here. First kill goes to Ashen, second kill goes to Ashen. Newer's gunned down by Bay. As Bay takes up residence over on Office side now. He'll sustain some damage as Nitro Cell gets hucked out as well. It'll claim what remained of Bay. Bolts is on the board early. Ashen still living with both kills, and Wildcard's advance. It's been caught flat-footed. They've tripped up, fallen flat on their face. Ash goes down as well, and with 1 minute and 45 seconds still remaining in this round, Spiker finds himself in a 1v4, holding the defuse kit outside of the building. SSG knows his whereabouts. He's over by the Samurai statue, over by Dragon, over by the window, now back over towards back stairs. It's either J9O or Ashen atop those stairs, waiting very patiently. A shotgun blast will be his undoing if he steps too close, but Benjamaster gets the job done first. SSG off to a strong start. They look so confident, only losing 1 player on the road to a round victory.
And to the point I was talking about earlier about Wildcard maybe just not having the polish that a team like M80 did, we have, as you said, a very scary combination. Ying, Dokkaebi, Lion. Dokkaebi, Lion in particular, obviously very good for the information, but the Yings can cause so much chaos in a defending lineup. In SSG, contrary to what I thought would happen, are playing a pretty heavy realm. They've got Ashen over in Terrace, and then Newers on Warden extended all the way into Exhibition. But where is that Ying throwing Candelas? At the Warden. Now there's a mute, so there's intel denial at play, but could have thrown those Candelas over on Ashen's side, where there's also one player who's a bit closer to the defense, but then maybe you split up his support in Drum, and then you can pinch him, and then if you take down Ashen, Newers is cut off in Exhibition. There's nowhere else you can go. You've got his retreat, and there's somebody pressuring at front. But you're throwing the Candelas at the one guy who can see through them, and call that this is a feint and that the push is coming from somewhere else. And when you push into a player like Ashen who's got a shotgun right around the corner, there's not much you can do. I just don't think that was a very well thought out attack from Wildcard. Even if the positions all made sense, the people in them, not as much.
Skyscraper is one of the fewest play rates of any of the maps here in North America. It's the third least played map. It's been played only a handful of times, and it is incredibly defender-sided, but with a very small play rate, it's hard to take those statistics seriously. 30 rounds have been played on Skyscraper through the group stages. 24 of those 30 rounds won by the defenders. That's good for 80% of all rounds. Again, small sample size, but that's one of the most lopsided map stats we've seen.
Wait. You said 24 out of 30 been won by the defense?
Yes.
The 6 that were lost were in that SSG game.
Yeah.
So, that's crazy. That's 80% with an 0-6 defensive half tucked in there.
That's wild, isn't it? And I mean, SSG's kept up that stat line. They won their very first defense. That's to be expected here. Again, small sample size. SSG will do exactly what they did on the first round here in the second. His dash is not long for this Earth. Kansan dies, Spiker dies, Baby Shark dies. All of these players without a single kill. The only person able to find a frag in the previous round was Bay, and he will not find one this time. A flawless second round by Space Station. Ashen was, for a brief moment, all smiles. SSG knows what this feels like. This is what Wildcard did to them in map number 1, and now they are doing it to their opponents. The difference is that since their timeout taken after the second round, SSG has dropped 1 round. They are 9-1 since that timeout in map 1. This is quite the streak they put together, quite the body of work. And Wildcard are just going right into it, not even calling a timeout.
Parker, I'm actually going to break my own rule that I kind of, not rule, but break my own kind of stand that I said earlier, and I'm going to talk about an M80 attack specifically and what Wildcard did not do. Because, weirdly enough, the defense we just saw, at least positionally, was very similar to an SSG defense we saw last week. Now, to be fair, it was on T Karaoke. That round we just saw was on Office Exhibition, but it involved an Azami playing around Geisha and Karaoke, defenders playing inside of T, and what M80 did was they brought a Capitao, they put players on Karaoke window to firebolt the Azami, playing deep in kind of like around the door of Geisha, and then pinch her from the window and from players pushing up. In that round, it was just one guy pushing that side of the map. Just one guy, and then he ends up walking into the entire defensive lineup. M80 stationed players around the players furthest extended to pinch them and get an opening pick. Wildcard has tried to brute force their way directly into the middle, and whereas, say, in the previous round, they at least had, I don't know, a Ying on the board in the right position to make it work, there's no Ying present in that round to disrupt things. Wildcard continuing to show woes on the attacking side, and SSG still proving better in the intel game. They're ready for somebody to hop in the window, C4 from below. It actually hits the gap at the right time and seems, I suppose, oh, Ashen, so late there, not playing off any information, lets the Blitz and the Deimos pass, and also gives away his position in the process.
Multiple times I thought just hit it, just hit it, just hit it, just hit it. You could have got the Deimos, you could have got the Blitz. Both of them excellent choices. These are going to be two of the strongest operators on the side of Wildcard. They need to get kills, though. Only a single frag for Wildcard through almost 9 minutes of action at this point. This is quite the drought, and it was not much better carrying it over from Clubhouse. Now a lot of emphasis on Geisha. Benjamaster gets away very briefly, felled by a nade. SSG finds 2 kills, 3 kills. What is going on with Fultz? Newers to the rescue on a flank, and now it's all up to Kansan, who's taking damage from phantom angles. It's not just that Wildcard is losing here, Lynx. It's that they're losing to players that they don't even see. It's a dominant start as SSG is up 3-0 on Wildcard's map.
Ashen actually asking the question that I was asking, but also I'm quite sure that we will see after the ban phase, is we will see Wildcard take a tactical timeout once we go through this formality. Again, with the Mira ban, this is actually something Gabe and I were chatting about briefly over the break, was, in Gabe's opinion, the somewhat ineffectiveness of the Mira ban on Clubhouse. That for many of the setups, the Mira isn't really a strong benefit on Clubhouse. It's kind of like, okay, you know, there's a black mirror on Logi wall, who cares? Logi's kind of difficult to clear with or without it. The mirror doesn't seem to add a whole lot. Here, on a Skyscraper in particular, you know, there are some very obvious positions where the mirror has, I'd say, a pretty big role. You know, the mini bar position, looking out onto the exterior wall, gives you an ability to, say, counter the breach on Office Exhibition. You also want to go to, like, T Karaoke. You could also have potentially positions like inside a geisha or looking out over towards like black, really anywhere you could kind of think of on the site. So while I think it is very powerful, Wildcard seem very fixated on the Mira. And it comes to the result of what I think is the Azami being left up, which is a way more dangerous option, at least in my opinion, on Skyscraper. Azami is great for holding down Drum, Shrine, Terrace, most of the power positions on this map, and we've seen 2 times now that Wildcard are clearly uncomfortable with the presence of Amira, but I will say taking down her and not the Azami, I think is going to be a bit of an issue. That's a crazy shot.
Yeah, that was wild. Again, it's just the wherewithal of Wildcard is very poor. The timeout after 3 rounds, Wildcard on the wrong statistical side of Skyscraper here to start. SSG got to choose the sign. They chose to defend. I think that's the correct call. I suppose if you go back to map number 1, Wildcard got to choose their side and opted to start as defenders on Clubhouse. That does go opposite of the stats that we see, but maybe they just suspect that maybe those numbers aren't fully accurate. Either way, Wildcard really has their work cut out for them.
Attackers are moving out to locate a bomb.
Ash, and I dearly hope you're not watching co-streamers while you're competing here. He's maxing. He's stat maxing, and he's siege maxing.
He's got channel points to win.
I'm ready for you bastards.
In Super's chat, not the.
Of course, one of the co-streamers. Yeah, absolutely.
Also,
That's go ahead.
Want to point out, we banned the Mira, and there was no way Wildcard could have foreseen this necessarily, but SG are like, okay, now that that's happened, we're bringing in Clash. Like, we have 2 very, like, mobile defenders that can hold positions really strongly, and in the process, we banned Mira, who I just don't think is as strong as Azami or Clash on this map. Newer's also thinking about getting very aggressive as he gets misdrone on delivery. Oh, but does the Ying still check it? That is great foresight by Baby Shark. Gotta give credit for that.
Newers has been a rock star. I mean, he's got the most kills, but Fultz, uncharacteristically, is very close behind. I mean, SSG does have multiple offensive threats, but it goes back to the point I made before a single round was played.
Jesus
My
Christ.
goodness. And yeah, Jesus. I don't even think Jesus Christ is saving you from that one. Bay does get the trade right back, but that was an incredible play by the Dane. Ashen will now falter 2. Fultz will pick up his 5th kill. He and J9O, the last 2 players, they've yet to die, though Ashen and Newers were in similar position. Newers had died earlier in a previous round. Ashen finds his first death. Logic bombs will give away the game for these 2. Fultz is removed by Dash, and now it's all up to J9O to clutch out. This bomb site's a tough one to crack. It's even harder if you're down in numbers because there just simply are not enough reinforcements to get every wall. And as you can see, teams will open things up to provide vantage points. Oh. Beautiful nade tossed out by Dash. I want to know where that was. It didn't look like there was an indicator on the screen of J9O whatsoever. And he gets felled. First successful round for Wildcard here on Skyscraper. And I will say, they're still in good spirits, Lynx. That does bode well for their chances. They're not as tilted as they could be, given the results of map 1 and now map 2.
I mean, they should be in good spirits. I mean, I am going to kind of put a little bit of an asterisk on that round, but I want to praise them first, which is I highlighted, you know, M80's window play and positioning as a big strong suit of their attacks against SSG, specifically on T and Karaoke. And that's one thing Wildcard incorporated very well there. Dash playing on these windows, that's honestly, that's diabolical that J9O died to that. I kind of feel bad about that.
Yeah.
Attackers have located a bomb.
But Dash was good for 2 kills on that position, just sitting there, Sentry with the 417, a gun that Demo thinks should be nerfed, and I honestly am not entirely, like, loath to disagree with him. So I like that addition from Wildcard, giving more focus on the repels. It tripped SSG up last week, and it worked really well here. I do want to say, I think SSG needed a little bit of a heat check, though. Newer's going for that run out and delivery. Clearly, he had the information that kind of seemed like he could get away with it. Turned out not to be the case. But Benja also going for that second kill on Geisha. That's a very natural move to make as a player. It also is very risky and can result in immediate trade, as we saw in a situation that likely was very pivotal for Wildcard's chances in that round. So hopefully we see SSG, I think, restrain themselves a little bit, because not the only reason, but a decent reason why Wildcard did succeed in that round was SSG giving them a lot more openings, and I think they probably could have.
I mean, it all started with Newer's doing something interesting, but really a bit abnormal. You can play a much more sheltered defense, right? And then everything just falls from that point on. SSG are a team that like to take chances. They like to get quite aggressive. They like to bring the fight to their opponents. And there are times where you will see Ashen and Newers do that, and it just looks like they're running into a brick wall over and over. Now we're in the playoffs, and most importantly, you don't win stage 1, as Spacestation did, without showing that you can adjust, show poise, and adapt to your opponents. This is a different SSG team that we're seeing right now than we've seen through much of the group stages. SSG made it in here ranked 4th. The winner of this match, by the way, will go up against M80 in, I believe it's tomorrow. Our next match and our final match of the day that might be coming sooner rather than later is going to be an intriguing one. Shopify Rebellion and Dark Zero. These two teams always put on a good show. DZ has had a bit of a down performance this stage, especially compared to stage 1, but similar could be said about Shopify Rebellion. M80 and OXG just so dominant, didn't really allow much opportunity for other NA teams to rack up points.
Oh, that's not great. Wildcard basically out of tools to deal with this clash. Both Ash charges have been used. Every bit of Lifeline utility's been used. Fultz setting up a crazy angle sitting behind that shield. They with a nice trade, but this clash is going to be a massive issue, and I think Fultz realizes there's nothing Wildcard have to deal with this position. No firebolts, no nades remaining, and a huge flank from Benja, backstabbing the backstabbers. Great shot in turn, but this seems to be SSG's round.
I mean, it's Bay and Kansan. Kansan having one of the worst starts he's had in quite some time. 0-4 is a dreadful result for a player of his caliber. Fultz is outside. He's just wasting as much time as possible. 30 seconds to go. J90 grabs Kansan. Kansan still held off the score sheet, and Bay will be as well, as Jack gets both of those final kills to give the lead back to 3 rounds for Space Station. A 4-1 first half so far with one more round to go. This is about as good as you could possibly imagine. Dare I say, a 5-1 first half looking exceedingly likely.
Very likely indeed. That was a very sad round, and I don't mean that necessarily like Wildcard style of play, but like, as you can see, they had a few tools to deal with that clash. Ash charges, Zofia, and the nades from Gridlock. And over the course of that round, you just see each one slowly get used to clear something else. Lifelines for hard breach now on one side, Ash charges for hard breach now on the other, nades used to clear the barbed on the staircase, all of which, by the way, perfectly valid uses of that utility. It just so happens that the overlap between the stuff you used to deal with the clash and the stuff Wildcard were using to clear hard breach denial was basically a complete circle. And so, in the process, Wildcard ended up denying themselves the ability to effectively deal with that clash outside of only 2 concussions, that if you shoot them down to the minibar door, the clash can just fall back because the Grim doesn't really have an angle to actually deal with her. And then the backstab comes late, and Benja's already waiting over on that side. Wildcard, unfortunately, I think just while lacking great tools to take down the hard breach denial, end up not really having great tools to deal with the clash, which heavily tripped them up on the actual site push itself. Now we go back to barbecue. In Parker, around that, honestly, I don't really quite know what happened, because I don't think Wildcard really did either with how quickly it transpired.
A lot of these rounds have been head scratchers with how quickly things have fallen apart for Wildcard. And I mean, while they've been able to maintain a positive spirit, I imagine it gets to you at some point. This is not the end of the road for either of these teams. There is a lower bracket, so the loser still has one more opportunity to make a good run of it. And frankly, it's quite common for teams to catch fire in that lower bracket and like make SSG. That gauntlet run. Oh, okay. Well, you know, I was getting there.
Sorry.
Like SSG, I took the scenic route. Nice run out from Ash, and no, most of his bullets get deflected by the blitz. It's punished by Kansan, who finally gets on the board, but Bay is as good as gone, and that means no exothermic charges. That's a rough spot. There's no backup hard breach. Dash will kill Benjamaster, so 2 kills for Wildcard, give them the advantage. SSG still wants to toy with that Geisha hold, though. No floating between that and the stairs. He's got Newers for backup, waiting because Wildcard has multiple players lined up in that area. I'll use a Lion charge, and the shield of the Blitz will get ever closer. Does the casing conceal it? Nice patience there by Newers, who hits the fadeaway. Baby Shark is gone. The Lion charge all for naught, and now even footing with about half the round to go.
Great patience by Newers. Taking down that blitz is going to be huge. Even though the top hold has been seeded, that was going to be the main way Wildcard break through the remaining setup on the site. SSG aren't long on utility, though. Only 1 toxic canister remaining with over a minute to go. And Wildcard do have all this vert. They'll have control of the hatches. They've also got the smoke bolts and 3 nades to clear players out of positions or block off lines of sight. So even though it's a 3v3, the utility's better for Wildcard. They just need to use these couple remaining drones and hunt down these remaining players. If they can do that, I think they'll be good. But if not, there is a way for SSG back in, even if they aren't the favorites.
We got Peak Ashen right now. He died, so he is as much time in the world to type as humanly possible. Cannot allow him to get under your skin. Kansan and Spiker with 1 kill apiece. It's not where you want to be for this Wildcard team. Only smokes remain on the side of Wildcard. Grenades there as well in pocket if need be. Newers striking a second time, taking down Kansan, now positioning himself to look over towards Restaurant. Oh! Grabbing Dash, a triple kill on his behalf. Bolts and J9O just need to lock out the round, and it's a 5-1 for Space Station. Spiker realizes he's got his back against the wall. Time running out. And now I'll circle the wagons. SSG getting ever closer. Spiker dies at the hands of J9O in a messy gunfight, but sometimes messy works. 2 rounds separate Space Station from a date with M80 in the upper bracket semis. They are demolishing Wildcard on Wildcard's map.
That round, by the way, the power of off angles and the power of off positions. That basically every single kill acquired by SSG, more specifically Newers, was achieved by taking a position later in the round on Wildcard either didn't have the time, the utility, or the wherewithal to clear it. That's how he got the kill on the Blitz. And more importantly, I would argue, and I think it's a very easy argument to make, that's how they won that late round, because you're sitting behind the bar in a position that you could hold, but Wildcard will need to check, and they could avail themselves to without really thinking about it. You're also holding positions, just outside of delivery, not holding a direct angle, but just crouched in a corner, like what we see Newers doing here. Constantly, these positions he was finding himself in and picking the right moments to take fights. That one was just a really nice shot. But the first 2, just a really good understanding of how the attack can be weak going into these late rounds, and also how to position yourself and when to take fights to take advantage of that weakness. 5-1 on the defense is excellent. I'm not going to say could have been 6-0, because I think Wildcard did genuinely win that 4th round, their 1 attack so far. But now the onus is on an SSG, and we have seen, not often, but if there's any map where a 6-0 defensive comeback can happen, Skyscraper is unfortunately one closer to the top of that list, even if the odds, of course, are
10
low.
seconds left before insertion.
Well, the stats aren't getting any better for the defenders versus attackers, by the way. Only 1 attacking round victory. Space Station can bump these up.
Attacker's objective is to defuse a bomb.
And operators being brought, and SSG very much liking this Sens, an operator whose pick rate has steadily increased. Changes to Sens have made them a little bit more viable. Warden's about as meta as you can get, and there will be smokes and flashes brought on the side of Space Station. So again, Warden not a reaction, but rather getting ahead of the problem. Space Stations seem oddly quick this round.
Yeah, smoke bolt used in the first 30 seconds. I'm intrigued where that went. Ooh, Ashen down early, though. I was about to say, I think somebody either taking a peek out of a window. Really great cutoff by Benja. Losing the Sens will suck, especially if you're going for a top black take. But taking on the smoke in the process, that's usually the player you're trying to actually push off the stairs. Seems like a Warden. Actually, no, that's Warden right there. Or maybe that's the Vigil. Either way, could be somebody black stairs. Oh, yeah, that's the Vigil, and Benja will realize that pretty quickly. Unfortunate.
Just a slugfest right now, Lynx.
Indeed. And honestly, I mean, Spiker's at the position right now where a minute 45 remaining. You're Vigil. Just waste time on this side. You don't need to fall back.
Still holding the spot. Yet to loosen his grip above, but will take some serious heat. Flushed out of that spot as the fire will continue to grow over by the geisha door. SSG's not droning this right now. They're just going to face check it. They have to be very concerned with what might be over towards Drum as a flashbang tossed out by Spacestation almost trips them up. Wildcard with the numbers advantage, just a little bit over a minute to go. Finally, they find some safe passage here in Geisha. They take down Kansan. There's no response by Spiker. Bay takes down J90 elsewhere. It's all up to Fultz. 7-11, and the man is working overtime right now. 3 players on the side, a Wildcard still to deal with. Inside of Drum. Starts with 1, but an immediate trade by Wildcard. Excellent response by the defenders. Wildcard stave off series point and win a much-needed round.
Off of a pretty concerted exhibition office roam, players pushed all the way to the opposite side of the map, and it's a setup that Wildcard really struggled to deal with on the attacking side, and it's one that SSG also struggled to deal with in their foray onto their own attacks. Wildcard have set up vertical angles, little contingencies in case an attacker decides to try to push them. And while Benjo is really good on that cutoff, the aggression from Wildcard working out very nicely in the opening kill, and then just letting the setup do the talking in the later round. Specifically, you can see all the defenders starting to rotate over to Terrace once they realize that the remaining SSG attackers are full committing to this position. They stack Bay on that spot, so that way that he can immediately trade out the second to last player once he goes down. Good coordination by Wildcard overall, and I just think not really going for too much on that setup, and Baby Shark getting a second kill off that run out. Sometimes run outs don't go well. In this case, it did. We can all be happy about that. Moving to T Karaoke now, he'll pick up the Azami. A very powerful operator for this site and also in general. One thing I wanted to mention, by the way, just to point out, Wildcard only banned 1 hard breach operator instead of,
wow, he actually got the trade.
Also, buck for Azami, I would make that deal every day of the week, by the way. I 100% think SSG come out the better for that. But what I was going to say is you can see Fultz playing Hibana alongside Newers on Thermite. By Wildcard banning Ying, a fair operator to ban, SSG have way more options to open up these walls, which you'll see being used right now.
Not like there's necessarily a good operator to lose early. I suppose just based on gadgetry and all that, losing the mute would probably be the least problematic, though you do go down a nitro cell, which is a bit of a small issue. You take out an operator who only gets stronger the later that a round goes, with incredibly important gadgetry that requires either ammo dumps, physical pressure, or a gadget to deal with. Yeah, I'm not sure I love that on the side of Wildcard.
Now, I definitely think SSG come out the better for that. Any vertical pressure you're going to get with the buck would have obviously been nice, and also I think would have particularly helped them with trying to clear these walls right now. Something they will have to be concerned with, by the way, is the usage of these Zoto canisters. If SSG keep committing, is going to take a lot of time. The Blackbeard just gets sent through. C4 at the feet of Ashen and Fultz, both of which fall back. Bay making the right option with a targeted prioritization. Kansan, while he might be a little late with that C4, gets 1, gets Ashen in the process. Huge trade from J90, because now you can rotate over, pick Ashen up, and while he's low HP, that shield is still alive. There's still 1 C4 in play. Spiker's got his closer to the site, but SG have a lot of utility. Still 3 drones to find these players, and a whole minute to go. It's going to be difficult with Ashen on such low HP, but SG have a lot of the pieces to get this done. Not guaranteed, but still a lot they can put into place.
The gas will be Ashen's undoing if he finds himself misplaced in this execute. 45 seconds left. J90 will be the one holding on to that briefcase. Ashen shredded by a cross as Ash gets away. That's a bold play by the smoke. It does work out, and immediately Spiker will take up residence over towards Geisha. His sights on a response. Newers closing in, though. Newers 2 kills away from breaking double digits. Fultz just 1 away as well. Spacestation has some heavy hitters on their side of things. Out go the Firebolts. There's nobody home. They're shadow boxing at the moment. And the gas will finally start with 10 seconds left. All of them have been used on the side of Dash, thrown out in a hurry. SSG, their advance being choked off, and Spiker and Dash will work together to slam the door shut on a comeback. Spacestation now struggling with the side swap, watching as Wildcard does to them what they did to Wildcard a few rounds ago. The gap slowly closing between these two teams.
Slowly closing, and this round is going to be probably one of the decisive factors. Because SSG have got 5 rounds on the defense, they only need to win the tertiary site twice in order to get a regulation victory. And if any site is going to fall, it usually will be Barbecue or bedroom, obviously, if Wildcard go to it. I think it's a big reason why SG are taking this time out right now. One, also because these attacks have never really got off the ground, in large part because of Baby Shark getting so aggressive early on. Even though it was a trade, he still started off with an opening kill for Wildcard every time. And even though, in theory, Wildcard were the losers of that trade based off the utility lost, and even though SG did get an advantage later on in the round, Wildcard are always keeping SSG trying to catch up to their pace. And SSG are always needing to fight back, and Wildcard, when Baby Shark gets aggressive, have the remaining 4 players playing really close to each other, playing off of each other, and SSG have yet to break through that kind of structure and the stalemate that Wildcard are keeping them at for a good portion of the round. That being said, SG realizing that are also going to the tertiary side, as I mentioned. If they get a win here, even if they lose T Karaoke and Office Exhibition again, they can close this out in regulation. It'll go the full distance, but they can close it out.
It's been an exciting matchup between these two teams. I am thrilled to see Shopify Rebellion and Dark Zero up next, as I assume that will be a good game as well. It is unfortunate when we bill 2 juggernauts going head-to-head, and it just ends up being a quick affair in this regard. I mean, Spacestation winning a 2-0 would suggest that the matchup was not as well balanced as we'd hoped, but I would still like to see these teams do battle a little bit longer, whether that means Chalet is on deck or not. That's really up to Spacestation at this point. They're going to change as much up as they can. We're going to see Nook for, is that the first time today, Lynx?
Yes, first time today.
An intriguing operator in the hands of Ashen, who's had some struggles to kickstart his own fragging ability.
And I think part of the reason is, what have SSG done the past 2 rounds? They've seen that setup from Wildcard once Baby Shark goes down, and then they tried to break it with utility. They tried to isolate players with the Sens screens. They've tried to use a Blackbeard to barrel right into it, and neither of those have worked. So, what do? We immediately get 2 lurkers brought into the lineup. Not just the Nook, as you mentioned, but for the first time on SSG's attacking half, we see Dokkaebi enter the mix, who is a very, very obvious corollary to what you will use Nook for on these attacks. Find ways of staircases, hunt for gaps in the defensive lineup. So rather than just trying to mash their setup into the defenses, now they've got 2 different players who can play it patient, see where these openings are, and then take them down. That being said, Wildcard have made a really good read. Anticipating perhaps that could be the case, Baby Shark bringing in the Valkyrie after the timeout is the exact kind of operator you want to see the defense do to anticipate this style of play.
There's Ashen watching as the windows next to him get opened up. And Nade will herald his entry, but no, he thinks maybe let's go somewhere else. Still not in the building. Watching as SSG now tries to hunt down these roamers. Logic Bomb will go off. Possible that'll give Bay's position on how stairs away as he now engages and Benjik grabs him. Oh my! Nearly a second onto Kansan, but can't get the job done. Just a little bit too high. Kansan, 3 kills and 8 deaths, is among his worst performances we've seen in quite some time. If he can heat up and bring the fire to SSG, Wildcard can close this 2-round gap very quickly.
Ooh. One thing to note, though, Dash is the only player inside of the site, and I'm not really seeing any vertical angles inside of Barbecue. So if this castle goes down, it will still be pretty tight, but SG could find a way in, and there he goes!
Off to the races! SSG can taste series point at this point. Now watching for an entry over towards that kitchen door. Ashen uncontested in the bomb sites. He loses some shelter from above. An ugly gunfight. Newers and J90 on the board. Kansan finds his second. Baby Shark is up there too, and it's all on the shoulders of Kansan. Heading for the hills, running for cover, back to the bomb site. Fultz holding the case. J90 with him. Both fire arrows still remain. Fultz will attempt the defuse plant. Kansan's approach, heard. Fultz falls off. SSG has a lineup, Kansan right now inside a pantry. They're running out of time. Kansan has to make a move or Fultz will be able to pull this one off. Kansan wasting time, attempting his best. Both players from SSG standing pat. Nitro Cell missed, caught on the wall. Kansan has to take matters into his own hands and J90 shuts him down. Space Station a single round away from a 2-0 victory, advancing to the upper bracket semis.
A round victory, by the way, that might genuinely not have occurred if we weren't in Siege X, and there's a reason why. Ashen gets into the site, but Fultz is all the way over on Geisha's side at the kitchen window, and we've only got like 40 seconds left in the round. Pre-Siege X, you got to rappel all the way down, run around the building, rappel back up, and then you can hop in. Whereas now, you can just run, turn the corner around the building, hop in, you save a whole 10 or 15 seconds, and that proves important because Fultz doesn't start getting that plant down initially until about 15 seconds remaining. But then he has to rotate because Kansan is in a good position to counter it. Then he only gets it down with 1 second on the clock. That round came down so late, but if that rappel change isn't in there, he might not get to that initial plant spot until the time at which he rotated in the round we just watched, meaning Kansan in all likelihood maybe could have crept out, got that kill because Fultz didn't have time to rotate. All that being said, it was a good initiative taken by Ashen and SSG reacting as quickly as they could. But man, still a really close effort in Wildcard. Still have an opportunity to get some rounds on the board.
I know that after their matchup earlier here in Stage 2, people were saying, yeah, well, Wildcard just owned Space Station. It was a 2-0 victory back in Stage 1 in the playoffs, and then they struggled as well. It was a 7-2 victory on the second day of our group matches on Nighthaven Labs, where Baby Shark, as MVP, dominated that game. It was one of the few times that people started to speak positively of Baby Shark, as he had some trouble adjusting to the NA League, and unfortunately, fingers were pointed at both him and Dash as the two imports for this team. I mean, granted, you've got Bay and Kansan, who are both terrific fraggers, doing their thing. It's easy for you to look at two new players and say, well, they don't live up to the billing. But they've really settled in. And coming into this matchup, Baby Shark not only had the most kills, but also the best KD of any wildcard player for Stage 2. He's grown quite a lot. Having a bit of a rough go of it in this series, but everybody has bad games. Kansan is having a bad game right now. He's been getting tougher competition on his entries. He hasn't had the easiest deployment on this team. It's allowed Bay to flourish, but just as we have that conversation right now with Wildcard, Space Station had this same one. Hell, we even talked about it a little bit earlier, where Benjamaster is an exceptionally good fragger. But when you bring on somebody like Newers, who just fits that NA mold and knows these matchups well, it forces Benjamaster to take a bit of a back seat. He didn't get that memo today, by the way. Benjamaster's been great. He and Newers currently combining for 17 kills through 9 rounds. That's pretty good for this entry duo, but Fultz has really been the savior. 9 kills on a thankless support role. Fultz is having a great day.
Each one of the players you just mentioned, all in positions I find a little bit exciting. We've got players looking outside the window, got players thinking about maybe a walk up black stairs. All could be quite exciting, but you can also see wildcard defenders stationed at each one, ready to take advantage of it. One player on Geisha, one player looking at the double window. Fultz not really in a great position to move in off the back of really anything they've acquired so far, because you still got players around Geisha or Karaoke or main stairs over on the opposite side. These wildcard defenders did a good job in the previous exhibition office defense, by the way, at playing passive, letting the setup do the talking and not pushing too far out of bounds. It's happening again here with SSG struggling to find an opening. Spiker with the first. one of again, the furthest positioned 2 in the process for Wildcard. It seems that Office Exhibition is going their way again.
Well, you get to a point where the only way for you to lose is through overtime, and SSG just might find overtime becoming far more likely, as now they've lost Newers as well, Lynx. Ashen, last man standing. The only casualty on the side of Wildcard was Bay. That'll be all she wrote on that round. A very quick collapse for Space Station as Wildcard pick up their 4th round, 2 away from sending us to overtime if we do need a 3rd map, which has looked quite unlikely through most of this altercation. Chalet will await us. If you're a fan of Space Station, you are hoping that we do not go to the beautiful French beaches of Chalet.
You can tell that SSG just,
Wow. I said French beaches and you didn't even there's no beaches, okay? There's no beaches. And I said it as a joke and you didn't get that, okay?
Sorry, I was...
Channeling your inner Albertan, because I know that for Jesse and Albertans, they don't get jokes all that well out there, okay? And now you're like...
I was excited to make my point.
Make your point. I'm sorry. Oh, God, what have I done? I'm sorry. Continue.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
Please make it.
You can just tell that SSG aren't as sharp and well practiced on this map as Clubhouse, which kind of seems like a silly point to make when Clubhouse is their map pick and this one isn't. But we didn't get to see much of their attacks in the M80 game because of how poorly their defenses went. And given how well the defenses went here, I was kind of hoping that maybe we'd see some of that opportunity spotting, some of that coordination we saw in Clubhouse. And to be fair, Skyscraper is just a more difficult map for that to make happen. But SSG, you can tell they understand kind of the form and the structure of what Wildcard are doing, but the way to get in has just not really manifested. Ashen has been lurking both times in this exhibition office attack. They've not really found a good way to get him activated. Just moving around delivery kind of aimlessly. Fold stuck, droning and clearing utility on the opposite side of the map a minute 30 seconds in when Wildcard haven't even moved. It just looks very qualitatively and subjectively different than the way they were playing that Clubhouse game, where they were very quick, very sharp, reacting to new information in real time, whereas here it always feels like they're a little delayed and always kind of trying really hard to figure out what's going on. Wait, hold on. Okay, wait. We're going to bathroom?
I didn't want to interrupt your point again. You were so excited for it.
Okay.
Talk about this bomb site.
So Wildcard won tier karaoke, and it wasn't super close. Sure, it was kind of close at the end, but Wildcard had the momentum the whole time. It's a primary bomb site. The tertiary site you lost was really close, but now you're going to one of the worst sites in the game when SSG are on match point. I'm not saying this is a bad call. This is a risky as hell call, and Wildcard just trying to catch SSG off guard.
So far, it's a stalemate, though. Ashen's taken some damage, but we're at the halfway point of the round, and there have been a lot of opportunities for these teams to come to blows. There go logic bombs as those 5 players on Wildcard very quickly turn them all off. Ashen dies. He'd been softened up earlier. Spiker finishes what little remains and goes back for seconds with Bay claiming Benjamaster. SSG collapsing very quickly yet again. Presence now over towards the bomb site as an exothermic charge will go off on the door. J90 is in, but he gets dropped. Dash claiming both of them. Foltz finding some safe pasture. Newers now to cover. Foltz has to pull off of the plant as Newers ascends the stairs, and they will triple up on him. Foltz another attempt. Wildcard have a lot of bodies to throw at him. They can dogpile him. They likely heard that case going down. If they didn't, they heard the bullets now. Foltz is trying to fire his way out of a bad position. He's been sitting on 9 kills for quite some time. Looking for something, but Wildcard showing Zen-like patience. One final round of regulation looks like it awaits us unless Foltz can pull off the unthinkable. Trapped inside of the corner, just by the bomb chassis. Very little places for him to go. He will be fighting his way out. He drags his cursor across the screen, finds one, but that's it. 2 more players on the side of Wildcard survive. They get the final kill, and we'll go all the way in regulation.
And still really struggling to get a good plan into motion. I think that they found some kind of opening, but I'm really not entirely sure. because you basically just have SSG attackers running around the map. Doe could be on one side. J9O finds his way into sight in a way that I'm not entirely sure like he even meant to do. Fultz opening up a castle barricade with a thermite charge, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but given he's directly in the middle of the site and kind of exposed when he's planting it on that wall, not a great position to be in with the odds they were at. And while the gamble works for Wildcard, I still think SSG are having the same issues they've had this entire half so far. And I have to say, I'm really surprised that we have only seen a shield one time this half. It was on T Karaoke. It didn't work. We're going back to T Karaoke here, and I think to nobody's surprise, Ashen will bring it back out. But I'm almost wondering if maybe it was something to like try after the timeout, maybe to try and, if you really want to focus on kind of like barreling into their setup, bringing that shield more often. I don't know, SSG have at least tried multiple things at least once, and none of them really working, and all kind of failing in the same way.
Janari will make an appearance now in the hands of Bay, hoping to trip up these SSG attackers. I mean, there has not really been much that hasn't tripped up Spacestation at this point. It's a very cursed Janari setup, by the way. It looks like artifacting. It looks like a graphics card is just breaking.
Okay, but like when you have that view, it looks really cool. Like that's like perfectly symmetrical.
Newer's taking an awful lot of damage, and he's finished off by Dash. Wildcard demolishing his SSG entry. All the first bloods going in the side of Wildcard. At one point, Dash was 4-4. He's accrued 5 kills since then. Leapfrogging over the rest of Wildcard, but don't count out Kansan. Remember, he was 0-4. Kansan has gone 8-5 since then. As Kansan goes, so goes Wildcard. Fultz takes out Dash. He's been sensational on the side of SSG. That's a big pick. Smoke is gone. Fultz finds kill number 11. And a sigh of relief goes out on the side of SSG as they find a second now, too. Baby Shark hunted, and the 3 remaining players from Wildcard pinned down by a logic bomb.
You've still got 1 logic bomb generating as well with over half the round to go. Full utility for the Capitao as well. The Warden is still up, and while that could be big, he's used his C4, so any control of the Vert or retaking the Vert is kind of pointless at this point for Wildcard. Ben just got that contingency on lock. He's got utility to give the attackers information in the late round. We're in a position where Wildcard might need to start playing aggressive to bring a pick back, and yet right as I say that, you've got 2 people in Geisha, and SSG are full rotating to the opposite side, where Wildcard are weakest. We're starting to see a run back of Clubhouse. SSG realizing where the defense is weakest and rotating over there.
They went for a drop. There are multiple ways out of Geisha. They find themselves out of that bad spot. They'll get that last logic bomb just to paralyze them, but for a moment, SSG will go on the hunt. J9O collecting Kansan. Bay and Spiker now coming to blows. A nice kill for Bay, but he loses most of his HP in the process. Diffuser going down in the hands of Fultz. An ugly play by Bay. And Spiker will have to save this series. SSG took a while to get here. They took the scenic route, but it sure looks like they'll punch their ticket up against M80. Hold on! Spiker finds a collateral onto J9O and Ashen. Trapped in the corner. Fultz has been the story of this map for Space Station. Can he close the chapter on this matchup? Spiker hunting for more, running out of time with the sidearm out, but Fultz will save it for his team. And a 2-0 victory for Space Station as they stare down M80 in the upper bracket tomorrow. Not really the result that we thought. Thought it could have gone a little bit closer, but SSG still gets the job done, and down to the lower bracket, Wildcard goes.
And perhaps off the back of their most brilliant rotation yet. Everyone would expect you to rush through top black, and SSG know that. So they fake with the smoke bolts. Everyone from Wildcard looks that way, and instead they hop in through the shrine window and barrel through T from that spot. Brilliant play by SSG. Really close game, but some of the strongest play we've seen from them so far this stage. We'll have the desk to talk about all that right after this.
Oh my god.
Good fucking shit.
Holy shit. Oh my god. If we hunt, we must all hunt at once, not one by one. We must say hunt!
Hunt!
SSG closing out the first game in a clean 2-0 fashion against Wildcard. They're going to be dropping into that lower bracket. But before we dissect what went right and wrong this game, we're going to have a little bit of a chat with Benja from the side of SSG. A little bit of a slow start to stage 2. I mean, you guys, everyone's just like standing behind you. Do you guys all want to say something? No?
No, they don't. They don't want to do that, no.
Okay.
No.
We'll continue with the interview then. Just talk us through like the last couple of days when it comes to actually preparing for playoffs, preparing for best of series. It feels like you guys have really ramped up over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, we had like good practice since the last group game and prep well, so yeah.
Yeah, something that we highlighted a bunch was the stylistic matchups of your guys' map bans. Is that something that you guys have looked a lot at? For example, today you banned Labs Lair. Obviously, you don't want to play Wildcard on Labs. So is that something that you guys are really focusing on, is making sure you get a good team matchup on the maps that you're playing?
Yeah, I mean, we only focused on banning Nighthaven. That's basically the only map they know how to play, so.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, Benja, congratulations on the win. I kind of want to talk about a point that Fox referenced earlier before this match started, was talking about kind of the support struggling a little bit on the SSG side. Kind of, I mean, in this matchup, we saw that completely change. Has there been a shift in the dynamic of just the approach from the support players, or kind of just it varies from map to map?
It varies from map to map, and like anyone on our team like can shoot, so I think like it's just like, you know, kind of depend on how enemy plays on who's going to play good, you know what I mean?
And just one more follow-up. So we've noticed that you're taking more like of a utility-based operator role, being more in depth of, you know, opening up walls, opening up floors, just being more utilization coming from your end. Have you been finding a lot more success, or is it still something that you're like slowly progressing to just kind of get down more and more with each game?
No, I mean I can play any roles. It doesn't really matter. Like just what we as a team feel is the best for like the team, and then yeah, just like about like being in sync, you know, as a team.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Do you think everyone standing behind you right now and J9 showing his feet is like the best for the team?
No, but that's what they wanted to do. So.
Do you think maybe they want to share some words? Because they look very eager. No? Okay. It's like,
no, I told them to not say anything.
Okay, they're just there for mental support.
No, I don't know why that.
Are you about to get bullied? Like
are you okay? Blink
here?
Twice if you're being held hostage.
I've seen this before.
Yeah, you guys could actually like, this is not a good meme. This is not a good meme. Go away.
Okay, you know what?
I'm sick. I can't laugh.
I was gonna ask if we can expect SSG to do a replica from what we've seen them do last stage, you know?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, but we just take game one by one, you know? Hopefully this time we won't go to lower bracket, but if we need to, that's what we're gonna do, so.
All right, well, thank you so much for the interview, and say thanks to J9 for showing feet, I guess, for free. In that case, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yep.
Bye.
See you guys. Bye.
You know what? At least the mental, the dynamic, the memes, the vibes, they're there.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Why are you looking like that?
That was arguably one of the best parts about being on a team, is the brotherhood that you have and the fun, the jokes, enjoying each other's company, especially when you're winning. So, you know, of course, you're going to get some laughs in. And, you know, after a performance like that, SSG really shut down Wildcard. You know, it was getting a little close for comfort towards the end of Skyscraper there, as SSG was losing the lead a little bit. But, you know, Skyscraper defense, you got to give and take some rounds when it comes to the attacking side.
I was about to say, I mean, that was expected. I was going to be baffled if Wildcard was going to let this walk away, just a 7-0 defeat coming on the side of SSG. I was just happy that SSG managed to still put up the performance that they did and didn't allow them to get that climb back to push it to an OT. I mean, that last round definitely got a little dicier than I wanted that to look, especially in that 3v1, but ultimately they did close it out here. And as for Wildcard, again, I mean, Skyscraper, sure, that might have been, you know, a better map for you, but that clubhouse is really, you have to start out these these games strong.
Yeah, let's go back to that final round specifically, because for a second, it did look like Wildcard was actually going to be able to push this one to OT.
I mean, it shouldn't have gotten to this point. I mean, it's a post-plant, 3v1. You have the Blackbeard still, Ash. And, like, I understand you got, you know, one round to work with here to maybe not go to OT, but there's no reason to even be challenging like this unless everyone's pushing with you. I think we heard it in the comms of them saying hunt, and you can't hunt with only one person. And what we saw from Spiker there was almost a masterclass comeback that was given rightfully so to him, but ultimately it came down to the old dog of Bolts to be able to shut it down. But I got a lot dicier than I wanted that to see. I would rather seen a clean cut. Oh my God, I can't talk. Clean cut, clear round.
Yeah.
There we go.
I completely agree. I mean, I understand the Blackbeard trying to put some pressure. You're in a man advantage. You have the shield. Pressure. But at the same time, could have easily just stayed back. Or, yeah, I agree. If they're going to do it all together. Clearly, Fultz was not doing it. So, you know, if there's some type of communication fed to him saying, hey, we're going to go for a push, and he says no, at least we're on the same page. I mean, you know, you're up a 3-man, and you have a Blackbeard shield in front. It's something that could be overlooked, but against a better team, easily could have been a round loss, easily could have went to overtime. So, you know, thankfully they were able to close it out.
Yeah, and it's also a mistake that they have now made. So hopefully it's not something that we're going to see them make again in a different game, because they are pretty much going up against M80 next, because they managed to stay in that upper bracket, whereas Wildcard is dropping to that lower bracket, and they're going to play tomorrow for a chance of survival to stay in the running for Munich. We still have one more best of 3 coming your way today, and that is Shopify Rebellion against DZ. Winner is going to go up against SSG. Winner is going to go up against OXG. Loser is going to drop to the lower bracket. So to see how that's going to play out, stick around, because we'll be back after the break.